Welcome to a Legalbytes presentation of the Karen Reed murder trial. If you're new here, my name is Alita. I'm a lawyer licensed in California and DC, and on this channel we make sense of the law one bite at a time. If you want more on the background of the Karen Reed case, check out our video on it linked in the description below. But otherwise, you be the jury. Did Karen Reed murder her Boston PD boyfriend John O'Keefe, or is she being framed by local police who Reed says are actually responsible for O'Keefe's death? Tell us what you think. But in the process, the one rule is don't be a dingus. Remember, everyone comes from their own perspective and opinion, and everyone comes to conclusions at their own pace. Agree or disagree, but always respectfully. Okay, let's get into it. All right, you guys. No, don't. Sorry. What a way to start the stream, right? Happy Monday, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and a very happy Monday to you. That was just Mavi very, very nearly creating a lot of chaos. Oh, man. That's her job. That's what I've decided is that is Mavi's number one job in this world is to create chaos. So welcome. Elbright, Cat 1, Alita 0. That absolutely was. Janet G. Yeah. No cats were hurt in the stream. I can guarantee that. And yeah, you know what? Maybe her nickname should be Mavok. Thank you, Night Eyes. So, okay, folks, we've got more testimony today, which I was just trying to check. I think in my notes here, I have it as witness number 25, but I think Brian Albert is actually number 26. So that's fun. I'm going to have to maybe update some things on some streamies and whatnot. But anyway, I'm pretty sure he's witness number 26. We are going to start right up with his cross-examination today. If you guys have not checked it already, there is a recap up for day 9. I managed to get it out ahead of the stream this time, so I am very happy about that. With some lead time, members even were able to get some early access to it, like super early in the morning for those of you that are in the US. But that's that was I'm satisfied with that for now, and hopefully we'll be able to get back into that sort of a rhythm this week. Also, what if any lally tally? I know folks always want to know that, so I'm trying to remember that at the very beginning before we jump into the testimony, so I don't pause it to say it again later. What if any lally tally? On day 9, although it was a full day of testimony, there were only 71 what if anys. That's the smallest number of what if anys for a single full day of trial. So the running total so far is 769. 769 what if anys have been spoken in this trial at this point, going into day 10. I am also going to, yes, thank you, the Lucy. I was literally just about to say it, and then I saw this pop up. I'm going to put a poll into the chat as well, so you folks will be able to vote in that. Let us know how you're feeling. How are you leaning? Are you leaning guilty, not guilty? Not enough information. You don't want to budge. You're exclusively down the middle still. Let us know in that poll. And for those of you that are watching on replay, if you're not able to join us live, you're watching on replay, let us know in the comments how you're feeling about this trial. We are 2 weeks in. It's a 6 to 8 week sorry, excuse me. It is a 6 to 8 week trial. And so that means that we are either a quarter of the way or a third of the way through this trial. So we'll, somewhere in between there. So it's interesting to see how these numbers kind of shift and where people are in terms of how they feel that the two sides are putting on their cases and their arguments and their theories. Of course, as always, it is the prosecution that has all of the burden in this trial. Burden of proof rests exclusively on the prosecution. This is not a case that has any sort of affirmative defenses that have been alleged. Thumbs up. That has been alleged in this case, right? There's no self-defense. There's no, defense of others, any sort of a defense that involves a legal justification for doing something. That is an affirmative defense. This is just a straight defense by by the defendant here. They're presenting an alternate theory of what happened, and that is not the same thing as putting on an affirmative defense. So everything is still on the prosecution side to prove this case beyond reasonable doubt. So if you have any kind of reasonable doubt on either side of who's responsible, that leads to an acquittal. But anyway, but I love the fact that folks are bringing their different opinions into the chat. Folks that are leaning towards guilty, folks that are leaning towards not guilty, and those who are decidedly down in the middle. I appreciate those too. So, because I love the engagement. I love to see how different people bring their different perspectives into the chat and into these sort of cases. Because, I've got my opinions, I've got my thoughts, but I'm just one person. A jury is made up of 12 in this case, especially. Sometimes it's a different number, but it's 12 plus some alternates. Daniel Evans with a question. What, if any, could a what if any, if a what if, wait, I can't even get through it. I have to do it slower. What if any, could a what if any, if a what if could any. I appreciate that. Thank you so much for that. And on that note, if you've got any questions, I will be saving them while we're doing testimony. If there's one that's more immediate in nature, sometimes folks are asking, like, what was that objection? Why was that sustained? Why was that, overruled? I try to catch those in the moment if I'm able to catch it and see it and whatnot. But otherwise I might save it and then answer it at a later moment when we are, zooming through some of these recesses and whatnot. So we don't have any sort of lag time where we're just kind of sitting and hanging out. Rob Inson, thank you so much for the super chat. How common are motions for acquittal at the end of the prosecution case, and how often are they granted? They are almost, like, I would say it's almost considered like malpractice, not for the defense not to try at the end of the prosecution's case in chief. So I would say like 99.9%. There was one case where they didn't. I can't remember. It was recent. I think it may have been the James Crumbley trial. It may have been, but there was one that I remember I was totally expecting to see a motion for a directed verdict in between, to, just requesting to dismiss the case right after the prosecution's case in chief closed, and they didn't. And I was very surprised. That was the first time that I'd ever seen that. So my expectation is the default is yes, they are going to try. How often are they granted though? A lot smaller, very rarely, because the standard is there and members, you can throw the emoji in the chat. Is there a scintilla of evidence? Or as I like to say, a chinchilla of evidence? If there's even a scintilla of evidence for each element, meaning that the jury could possibly, here we go, I see him in there, that the jury could possibly, reasonably come, to a conclusion that is in the favor of the prosecution. The judge here is not supposed to weigh the evidence. It's just, is there a presence of evidence that could be interpreted in that way? That's where the prosecution ends up winning on that motion, and then the defense gets to put on their case in chief. So that is what it is. So we're looking for those chinchillas of evidence. So thank you so much for the question. And any other questions, especially if you add a Q or you tag me in the chat, it's a lot easier for me to see them. So I will try to get to all of them if they are in there. So all right, guys, let's get to it, shall we? Enough yammering, right? Okay. We are back on with Mr. Brian Albert.
Okay, whenever you're ready, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Albert, this process is not the first time you've testified in the court of law, is it?
No.
In fact, you were a police officer for either just under or just over 30 years. Is that right?
Yes.
During that time, how many times would you say that you testified in a court of law in any capacity?
I would say 100, perhaps.
So you consider yourself to be an experienced witness?
In what aspect? In as far as being a witness as a police officer?
You've experienced testifying in a courtroom?
Yes.
Okay, so you understand the oath?
Yes.
You understand the gravity of perjury.
Yes.
When was the last time you spoke to Mr. Lally before Friday when you began testifying?
Before Friday, the last time I spoke to Mr. Lally was, I believe, on a conference call around the time of my grand jury testimony.
Which would have been 2022,
Yes,
April of 2022.
yes.
So you've not spoken with Mr. Lally since that time.
I don't remember speaking with Mr. Lally since that time, no.
What about anybody else from the district attorney's office?
No,
Have you gone over the facts or what you believe to be the facts of your testimony with anybody before you testified on Friday, not including any lawyer that you may have?
no,
Did you discuss any questions that you may be asked on direct examination or questions that you may be posed on cross-examination with any member of the district attorney's office?
no.
Were you told about any exhibits or documents that you might be shown?
Just in the prep, I believe I was shown a video of the waterfall bar.
And that was back in April of 2022?
No, that was for the prep for this trial.
With whom did you prep for this
I'm
trial?
Mr. Lally.
I'm confused. I thought you said you had not spoken with Mr. Lally since April of 2022.
Except for the prep for this trial, I had not.
Okay, that was my question, Mr. Albert.
Okay, I misunderstood your question. I apologize.
Did you prep for this trial with Mr. Lally?
Yes,
When?
approximately a few weeks ago.
Okay, Mr. Albert, about 45 seconds ago, I asked you, have you spoken with Mr. Lally before your testimony in this process, this proceeding? And your answer was, no, I have not. Did you not understand my question?
I did not.
What was confusing about it?
I was expecting you to ask if I had prepped with Mr. Lally. I didn't hear prep with Mr. Lally, so I didn't know what you were referring to.
So when I said spoke with Mr. Lally, since I didn't say prep with Mr. Lally, your answer was no, I didn't speak with him. I just prepped with him.
Yes.
Okay, so what is it?
What's the difference between
Yeah, so then what does it mean to prep with him if you're not talking to him at the same time? Like, talking with him is a much broader umbrella than prepping with him. You could be talking with him about the weather, but prepping with him also involves talking, but it's a much narrower set of circumstances. And not a great start for him.
speaking and prepping?
No, there is no difference. I just misunderstood your question. That's all.
Tell me about that prep with Mr. Lally.
Sure. I prepped with Mr. Lally about this trial with Mr. Lally and my attorney.
Where did that preparation take place?
The preparation took place, I believe, I'm trying to remember exactly where it was. I actually don't recall where it was.
Could it have been at the DA's office?
Yes, but it wasn't at the DA's office. No, I believe it was somewhere else, but I can't remember if it was here or the DA's office.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I also asked you a couple minutes ago, did you review any documents or any evidence in preparation for your testimony? And to that question, you also answered no.
Well, I said I reviewed the video.
Well, now you're saying you reviewed a video, but when I
Yes.
asked you, did you see any evidence or documents, anything in preparation for your testimony? You said no, correct?
No, I believe I said I saw a video.
Did you misunderstand my question when I asked it the first time as well?
No.
Okay, I'm going to try to be clearer with my questions.
Okay.
Let me try it again. What, if anything, have you reviewed in anticipation?
We just got a what if anything from the defense. So I'm gonna remember that one and then mark that against. Well, I'll mark that off of the what if any Lally tally, because that's literally the first time that I've heard the defense attorney use that. Using it once or twice, that's fine. I'm okay with that. But yeah.
Anticipation of your testimony in this trial.
So I reviewed a video of the waterfall.
Anything else?
I reviewed my transcript from the grand jury.
So you have reviewed your prior testimony,
My transcript of the grand jury, yes.
which is prior testimony, correct?
Yes.
When did you do that?
I did that during the prep.
What part of the waterfall video did Mr. Lally show you?
I was a small snippet of the video and just one of the 20 seconds of video during that night.
Which part? There's a lot of video there. Which part, if you can tell us, which part did you review with Mr. Lally?
It just showed the waterfall. It showed patrons. It showed myself and the other people I was with.
What were you doing in that 20-second snippet of that video?
I believe in one portion of it, I was fooling around with Brian Higgins.
Fooling around?
Yes.
What does that mean?
Means we were just fooling around. That's it.
Fooling around like playing arm wrestling?
No, I don't think we were arm wrestling. I think we were just pushing each other, fooling around.
Oh, so play fight.
I don't think I would call it play fighting. No, I was just,
Remember seeing part of the video where you took a fighting stance, sort of like this?
I actually don't remember that part. No.
No. Remember
Bring
part
up the
of
video.
where Brian Higgins took a fighting stance, sort of like this?
Maybe, yes.
Two of you approached one another?
I don't think I saw that whole video. No.
Practicing fighting techniques?
We're going to show it.
I
Objection.
wouldn't call it that.
No,
No.
you can have that. I'm sorry. What was your answer to that, Mr. Albert?
No.
So what you reviewed with Mr. Lally was the portion of the video where you and Mr. Higgins were somehow fooling around. And well, how would you describe it? If it's not fighting techniques, how would you describe it?
Just joking, being silly, just fooling around.
Okay. Doing what physically?
Doing, if you rephrase,
Physically. I mean, you could joke with words.
right.
Were you doing just joking with words like a stand-up comedian, or were you doing something physically?
No, I think we were pushing each other, fooling around, joking.
Okay. Did you ever show him how to throw a punch?
Did I what?
Did you show him how you would throw a punch?
I don't remember that. No.
Did you squat down and show him how you want to get low when you're either aggressive or defending an aggression?
I don't remember that exact pose. No.
Did he walk over to you and grab you and act like he was going to drive a knee into your stomach?
I'm not sure.
At some point, did you flip him around, grab him in a wrestling hold?
I may have. I just don't remember it exactly.
Do these things sound familiar when you reviewed as to your review of the video that you saw with Mr. Lally?
No, I didn't see all those on the video, Mr. Lally.
Did you discuss with Mr. Lally the questions that you might be asked by him on direct examination? Did he go through, here are the topics of conversation that we're going to have?
No, not like that.
Did he go over with you what he believed the topics of conversation might be on cross-examination by either myself or Mr. Unetti?
I believe so, yes.
What did he tell you you might be asked?
I don't remember exactly what he told me. He said we could be asked about the night at the waterfall. We could be asked about back at the house, things like that.
Anything else?
Not that I can remember.
Is there anything, given your conversation with Mr. Lally, is there anything that you want to change about the testimony that you previously gave under oath in April of 2022?
No,
The fact that you now reviewed that testimony?
no,
You stick by that testimony?
yes.
I will say the whole thing about the play fighting is the jury has seen that surveillance video. They've seen it and they can make their own determination as to whether or not they consider that play fighting. You know, I mean, play fighting, roughhousing, that's kind of, I would maybe call it more roughhousing than play fighting. But the defense, of course, wants to keep hammering in this term play fighting, because what they would like the jury to think is that it started with play fighting and then became real fighting and then became murder. You know what I mean? So the defense definitely wants to be hammering that in to hope that the jury is going to adopt it. Now, will they adopt it? Will they not? I don't know. For me personally, I'm like, you know, the fact that they've engaged in, even if we call it play fighting, roughhousing, what have you, doesn't necessarily mean that it actually turned violent later. Maybe they are the kind of guys that when they drink more and drink more and drink more, things kind of escalate physically and then turn into, you know, that sort of an issue. Or maybe they were not being that crazy when, with drinking for the night, and they engaged in some light roughhousing among friends. And that's also kind of a way for guys to sometimes like show affection for one another, I guess. You know, there are definitely two different ways of looking at this, but the defense of course is trying to hammer in the phrases that they want the jury to adopt. We'll see how it goes.
Have you watched any of these proceedings on any platform before your testimony?
No,
Never tuned in to anything that's live streaming, any of the media coverage?
no,
You're aware that your wife testified before you.
yes,
Did you just, I don't want to know what the words were with her before you testified.
no,
So she came home after testifying in this trial, and you two never brought it up.
no. I just asked her how she was doing, and that was it.
Mr. Albert, are you close friends with Brian Higgins?
I wouldn't describe it as close friends, no.
He's a fellow law enforcement officer, correct?
Yes,
Works for the ATF,
he does.
the Department of, or the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives, correct?
Yes.
How long have you known Mr. Higgins?
I think I first met Mr. Higgins about 15 years ago.
How did you meet him?
It was a professional, something at work. We may have worked together. I think at the time he was a Cambridge arson squad member. And I think he came into the city of Boston to do something for work.
So you've known him for 15 years, and you were with him on January 28th, 2022, correct?
Yes,
And he's the person that you were, quote, joking and fooling around with, right?
yes,
You had a long road trip with Mr. Higgins on January 28th, 2022, didn't you?
what's the question?
You had a long road trip with Mr. Higgins on January 28th, 2022, correct?
We drove from New York to Boston, yes.
It's a decent road trip.
It's a pretty good drive, you'd say.
Yes,
Consider that a road trip?
yes.
How long?
I don't know if it was probably somewhere around 4 hours, maybe.
Once you got back from New York to back up to Boston, the
Yes.
Boston area, the two of you stopped at a location, correct?
Yes,
What was the location?
the hillside.
And what did you two do at the hillside?
We went into the hillside, had a drink, talked, and I think Brian may have ordered food.
So once you got back from that relatively long road trip, that 4 hour long road trip, I apologize, you stopped at a bar and started drinking, correct?
Yes,
Do you have anything to eat at the hillside?
I did not.
But Brian did. Brian Higgins did.
I left prior to Brian Higgins eating.
During the course of that road trip or at the hillside, did the two of you discuss Karen Reed, my client?
No,
Did her name ever come up?
no,
Without telling me anything that he may have actually said, did he mention Karen Reed or the topic of Karen Reed?
no, never.
Did he mention the fact that he had been texting and flirting with Karen Reed 2 weeks prior?
No,
So that subject, according to you, was never addressed or broached by Mr. Higgins or you
no,
during that entire day.
no.
After you arrived at the waterfall, John O'Keefe arrived subsequent thereto, right?
Yes,
How long after?
approximately 45 minutes, maybe?
And Karen Reed was with him, is that right?
Yes,
Brian Higgins was standing right next to you when she came in along with John O'Keefe, correct?
I'm not sure where people were standing when they arrived.
Well, you remember you saw video, correct?
I don't believe there's any, I saw video of them walking into waterfall now.
Fair enough, but you saw at least a clip, according to you, you saw a clip of that video of you at the waterfall, correct?
Yes,
You were situated at a high top table, right?
yes.
Your back is sort of to the camera, is that right?
I'm not sure of the camera angles. The video that I saw, I was at the high top table, but I'm not sure of all the camera angles of the waterfall.
Brian Higgins is the guy with the sweatshirt with maybe a Harley Davidson emblem on the back or something.
I'm not sure what he wore that night. I'm sure he had a sweatshirt on, but I don't know what the emblem was.
Okay. He was standing right next to you in the video clip that you saw.
Yes,
Okay. In other words, that was the video where he was standing right next to you. You two turn to each other and start this play fighting thing.
yes,
So if it's that time or sometime around there at the high top, you were in proximity of Brian Higgins when Karen Reed and John O'Keefe came into the bar, correct?
I just don't recall the timing of when they came into the bar.
All right, Mr. Albert, did Mr. Higgins say anything to you at that time about John O'Keefe arriving with Karen Reed at his side?
No,
Did Mr. Higgins say anything to you about being upset that Karen Reed had shown up with John O'Keefe?
no.
Describe your relationship with John O'Keefe, if you would.
So I didn't know John that well. I had only met him a few times. But every time I met him, it was cordial, pleasant. And I would consider him to be a co-worker, even though I never really worked with him directly. He seemed like a nice guy. I knew his whole story about the fact that he had taken his niece and nephew after a tragedy in the family. And I had an unbelievable amount of respect for him doing that. But I can't say that we were good friends because I didn't really know him all that well.
You were far better friends with Brian Higgins than you were with John O'Keefe. That's fair to say.
Yes,
On Friday, you were asked whether or not you knew my client, Karen Reed, correct? This meeting a couple days ago during your direct examination.
I believe so, yes.
You were also asked the same series of questions at another grand jury not involving the Commonwealth. Remember that in June of 2023?
Yes,
I want to be clear about this other hearing. That was a non-Commonwealth hearing in front of a grand jury, correct?
yes,
All right. Mr. Lally and his colleagues were not there. Is that right?
yes,
I was not there. Mr. Yannetti was not there,
yes,
or Miss Little.
right.
At that June 2023, and I'm going to talk about a couple of dates, so I don't want to be confusing. At that June 2023 non-Commonwealth hearing, you were asked some questions about whether or not you knew Karen Reed before January 28th, 2022.
I believe,
That night in question.
I believe so, yes.
And you testified, before you testified, you were sworn an oath.
Yes,
Same oath that you swore in this trial, correct?
yes,
Swore to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
He's gearing up for an impeachment. Get ready for it.
yes,
And you knew that you were testifying under penalty of perjury in that hearing as well, correct?
yes,
And you testified at that non-Commonwealth grand jury that you, quote, believe Karen was with John the night he came into Hillside, a female that looked similar to Karen from the waterfall came in with him on that night. And I assume that was her, but I can't say for sure, end quote. That was your testimony before that grand jury.
yes,
But you were also asked a similar question in April of 2022 by Mr. Lally at his grand jury. You remember that?
no,
Let's start at the beginning. Before you testified in the April 2022 grand jury, more than a year earlier, and just 3 months after
I will say that wasn't exactly the the level of firepower that I thought it was going to have. But hey, inconsistencies are inconsistencies. Get at it, right?
this incident, you were sworn an oath, correct?
yes,
Same oath that you took in June of 2023, right?
yes,
And the same oath you took on Friday.
yes,
Isn't it true that you were asked the question whether or not you knew Karen Reed on January 28th, 2022, and you testified, quote, I've never met or seen her before, end quote.
no, I don't recall that.
Didn't you indicate that you just testified, that you reviewed your grand jury testimony in anticipation for this trial?
Yes,
You'd read the whole thing,
yes,
and you don't recall making that statement.
no,
So that is interesting because it sounds like then that he wouldn't have been either he wasn't at the waterfall or she wasn't at the waterfall or he just did not register her at all at the waterfall. Because if he says, I've never met her before, I don't know her, this is just not someone that I'm familiar with at all, then, where did this other information that he testified to about her come in?
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes, and I'll see counsel at sidebar when you leave that with the witness.
Just please take a look at that.
Sure.
So I think he's going to this is probably going to be the portion of his grand jury testimony where he said I don't know her, I've never met her. All right, we're going to fast forward a little bit. Time travel. Oh, sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Albert, have you had an opportunity to review that?
I have. Thank you.
Does that refresh your recollection as to what you said before the grand jury in April of 2022?
Yes, but you didn't read the whole quote though.
Right. The whole quote is the following. Question. So the female you had never met before, is that fair to say? Answer. No, I've never met her or seen her before, period. Maybe once, but I don't think I've ever had a conversation with her.
Huh.
That was the entire quote, correct?
That's the entire quote. Yes, that's not what you read earlier, but yes.
Well, what
The
I read
meaning's the
earlier
same.
was, I've never met or seen her before. Those words came out of your mouth, correct?
That's not my whole sentence. No.
You said, I've never met or seen her before, and then you said, maybe once, but I've never had a conversation with her, I don't think.
Right. That's my sentence.
Okay, so which is it, Mr. Albert? What were you saying? Were you saying you met her and had a conversation with her? Or were you saying, I've never met or seen her before? Which one of those two things was true?
I was saying that I met her maybe once.
Actually, what you said was, I've never met her or seen her before. Your words, not my words, sir. Isn't that right?
No, because in the next sentence I say I met her maybe once.
So you literally changed your testimony within your own testimony.
Objection.
Now, can you answer that, Mr. Albert?
I believe I qualified my first sentence with his second sentence.
So what changed between the first sentence where you indicated unequivocally, I've never met or seen her before, and the second sentence when you said, maybe once?
I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time that I said that.
Isn't it true, Mr. Albert, not only had you met Miss Reed, but you had spent several hours with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe 6 days before this incident. Isn't that true?
No.
In fact, on January 22nd, 2022, 6 days before January 28th, you socialized with Karen Reed at the Hillside Bar for several hours, didn't you?
I was at the Hillside Bar the week prior. Yes.
It was a Saturday night, correct?
Yes.
You were at the bar.
Yes.
There were several other folks at the bar, correct?
Several people. Yes.
That included Chris Albert, your brother,
Yes.
a guy named Tim Daly,
Yes.
D-A-I-L-Y, is that right?
I'm not sure how to spell his last name.
Julie Albert was there.
Yes.
Jen McCabe was there.
Yes.
Matt McCabe was there.
Yes.
John O'Keefe was there.
Yes, he was.
And Karen Reed was there, correct?
Yes, she was.
In fact, Your Honor, may I approach?
Yes.
I'd like you to take a look at a photograph. Just look at to yourself for a second. Tell me if you familiarize yourself with it, and then look up when you're ready.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Actually, I don't need to. Mr. Albert, you can stay there. Do you recognize the photograph that's before you?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
Well, I recognize the people within the photograph, and the background of the photograph looks like the hillside.
Does that appear to be a photograph that was taken on January 22nd, 2022?
Yes.
You were at the Hillside Bar?
Yes.
May I publish this, Your Honor?
Okay, is it already in evidence or
It
you?
is not, Your Honor. I'm sorry.
So you put it in evidence first and then you
May
publish
I
it?
have that marked as next in order?
Yes.
And then
The exhibit 67.
Thank you.
permission to publish, Your Honor?
Yes.
Thank you. You see that photograph? It's the same photograph that you're looking at in front of you?
Yes.
Describe who the people are going from left to right, sir.
Chris Albert, myself, John O'Keefe, and Tim Daly.
And this was on January 22nd, 2022, at about 11 p.m., correct?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, who took the photo?
I don't know.
Karen Reed took the photo, didn't she?
I have no idea who took that photo.
Karen Reed took the photo. You're literally staring right at her, correct?
I don't know who took the photo.
Well, who else do you think it could have been?
Well, there were a lot of people there. You mentioned my sister, 2 sister-in-laws, a brother-in-law. I'm not sure.
You can turn the lights back on, please, and take the photo down.
Ah. So, I mean, I do understand that when you are hanging out with a group of people, there might be like 1 or 2 people that you maybe briefly meet or don't really even have a chance to meet, especially if it's like a crowded kind of space. I'm playing devil's advocate here on that point. But if she took the photo, I could also see that being like, are you conveniently forgetting? Is your memory just conveniently spotty on this point?
Did you ever see this photo from Jim McCabe?
No.
Did you ever see it from Julie Albert?
No.
Chris Albert didn't take it. He's in it.
Right.
Tim didn't take it. He's in it.
Right.
You obviously didn't take it.
Right.
And who's the guy on the far right?
Tim.
That was Tim. Who's the guy next to Tim?
John. Right?
So who do you think?
Do you still need the photo up? I'm sorry. I thought you were done with it.
Do you remember?
Yeah, it was John, yeah.
Okay. Put the
Yes.
baseball cap on, correct?
Yes.
I don't need it.
Okay.
Also, really, really quick, Mountain Princess 207, thank you so much for mentioning this, and other folks have mentioned it in the chat. I forgot to mention this earlier. If you guys are enjoying the stream, please do like the video. It's a small little thing that you can do. Takes like 2 seconds, and it really does help because the YouTube algorithm notes that kind of engagement and then starts to put it in front of more people, so we can have more people join our Boston Tea Party over here. Thank you.
So given the fact that you were never shown that, you've never seen that photo before today, correct?
I saw a photo that was sent to me in Discovery or to my attorney that showed only, I believe, me and John in the picture.
Okay.
I think it's the same photo, only that's blown up to show everybody.
Got it. So given what you now know about that night, who was there, the fact that John is posing for a photo right next to you, who do you think took the photo, sir?
I have no idea who took the photo.
Could it have been Karen Reed?
Objection.
Sustained. Let's move along from
In
that,
fact,
please.
you were interacting with Karen Reed and John O'Keefe throughout that evening, correct?
I remember having conversations with John that evening. I don't necessarily remember speaking to Karen that evening.
Irrespective of whether or not you spoke to her, you obviously saw her there.
Yes.
You were there with her for a couple of hours.
Well, I wasn't there with her for a few hours. I was there with other people.
Okay. So without splitting hairs, she was there, correct?
Yes.
John was there.
Yes.
You were socializing with John.
Yes.
She was right next to him.
Sometimes, perhaps not, maybe all the times I was talking to him, no.
So you were socializing not exclusively with her,
Right.
but certainly socializing with her 6 days before John O'Keefe ended up dead on your lawn, correct?
We were there at the same time, yes.
And yet, when you were asked 3 months later, do you know Karen Reed, or how do you know Karen Reed? The actual question was, so the female you've never met before. Is that fair to say? That was Mr. Lowry's question. And your immediate response was, no, I've never met her or seen her before. Correct? That's what you said.
That's not my whole response, no.
That's what you said immediately upon that question, sir.
That's the beginning of my response, yes.
That was the first sentence out of your mouth.
Yes.
And I mean, the witness, I don't begrudge the witness for kind of fighting him on that, because it is true. We've heard the full statement, the full response that he gave. And it is true that he then kind of qualified a little bit and said, I may have met her once. So but that's the kind of testimony that's just confusing, because it's like, which one do you really mean? But during a grand jury hearing, there's no defense attorney that's coming in to cross-examine. There's no Alan Jackson coming in to grill him on, like, did you mean this or did you mean this? Which one of these did you mean? Because they are very, very different. Like, how do you mean that you could have met her once? Do you have any specific memory of having met her once before? That's the kind of thing that could be cross-examined on. But in a grand jury hearing, there's no defense that's coming in to do a cross-examination of any of the witnesses. So, but I also don't begrudge this witness for kind of sticking to it on this one, because he did in fact say in that prior testimony, it's not exactly an impeachment. Alan Jackson is doing a great job of really focusing on that first part, because that's great for the defense. This witness is actually holding his own fairly well by focusing on that second sentence.
You also testified at the subsequent grand jury in June of 2023. When asked what was your impression of Miss Reed, you said, quote, I honestly didn't really have one. I didn't have any conversation with her. I just kind of saw her from across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
I don't know what that question is referring to. Is that for the waterfall or is that for Hillside?
Hillside.
Okay, yes.
All right. So in June of 23, a little over a year later, your testimony significantly changed from no, I've never met or seen her before, to I really didn't have a conversation with her. I saw her across the table. I didn't really think of it either way. Correct?
No, I think those are very similar testimonies.
When you were asked in the other proceeding, and this is about the waterfall, question, did you talk to Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? You answered unequivocally, I did not. Is that right?
Yes.
And that's what you told the June grand jury, June of 23, correct?
Are you referring to the state grand jury? Or?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
That's why I'm using dates. I'm trying to be careful.
Right.
April.
I'm just not clear on what all the dates were.
I'll see if I can clarify.
Okay.
April 2022, state grand jury. June of 2023, a different grand jury.
Okay.
Okay. When you were asked at the June of 2023 grand jury, did you ever talk with Karen Reed at the waterfall that night? Your answer was, I did not. Correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. With the court's permission, could I play a small clip from Exhibit 53?
Okay. Oh, he's going to impeach him with the surveillance video.
Starting at timestamp 11:53 and 15 seconds. If we could just play this, and I would direct your attention, sir, to the upper right-hand corner. Pause it. Do you recognize the individuals in this clip?
Yes.
Do you recognize that person?
Yes, I believe that's me.
Do you recognize that person?
I do. I believe that's the defendant.
Ms. Reed,
Yes.
what does it appear you are doing as it relates to Ms. Reed in this clip?
It appears that I'm talking at the table. I don't know if it's specifically to her, but
Can you play it? Stop. Did you see the part of the clip starting at 11:53 and 15 seconds, going back about 30 seconds?
yes.
Who did it appear you were talking directly to, and who did it appear was answering directly to you?
I looked like I was speaking, but I can't say for sure that I was directly talking to the defendant.
Even though it looked like you were looking right at her and leaning toward her as she was answering you.
I was definitely looking that way. I don't remember the conversation.
The reality is, we can take that down. The reality is, Mr. Albert, you had many conversations with her throughout the night, like you would with anybody else you were socializing with, correct?
No.
It's not like you ignored her through that evening.
No, I think that just the positioning of me on the other side of the table, I didn't have really much contact.
There was only one person between you, and that was Mr. Higgins.
No, I don't think that was the setup for the whole night.
I didn't say the whole night.
Right.
I'm talking about right then.
Right. So,
That's an example.
right. What's your question? Rephrase your question, please.
Did you or did you not have conversations with Karen Reed that night?
I do not recall having conversations with Karen Reed that night at all. No.
And that's what you told the grand jury under oath, notwithstanding this video evidence to the contrary.
Yes, I don't think that video shows that.
I'm going to let that stand. Next question, please.
On redirect, I think that the prosecutor is going to come up and be like, is this a group
You
conversation?
were interviewed by Michael Proctor on
That kind of thing.
January 29th, the day after this incident, correct?
Yes.
And that was 6 days after you spent several hours, Karen Reed, at this event, correct? 6 days later.
Yes.
You were asked by Michael Proctor whether or not you knew or what your relationship was with Karen Reed, correct?
I don't recall if he asked me that.
Did you say to Michael Proctor, quote, that you quote, did not know Karen Reed, end quote?
I may have. Yes.
But when you made that statement, you did not know that Ms. Reed had a photograph of you at the Hillside Bar, correct? You didn't know that photo existed, did you?
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Sir, you were trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your interview with Michael Proctor, weren't you?
Objection.
Were you?
No, I was not.
Mr. Albert, you were trying to distance yourself from knowing Ms. Reed in your grand jury testimony with, well, I'll use the date, in your April 2022 grand jury testimony, weren't you?
No.
You were further trying to distance yourself from Ms. Reed in your June 2023 grand jury testimony as well, correct?
No.
You thought that it was important to try to deny knowing John O'Keefe and Karen Reed during those interviews and or that testimony.
Objection.
Sustained.
Mr. Albert, you knew that if you admitted having a relationship with John O'Keefe and Karen Reed, you'd have a lot to answer for when Karen Reed's boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask the question differently.
You knew that there would be questions about your relationship with Karen Reed if it were known that you knew her before her boyfriend ended up dead on your lawn 6 days later, correct? There would be questions.
Objection.
You can ask it a different way. That's sustained.
So you lied under oath when you said, I've never met or seen her before, correct?
No, because that wasn't my whole statement.
The sentence, I've never met or seen her before, pretty unequivocal, isn't it?
That was not the context of my whole sentence.
But that's the words that came, those are the words that came out of your mouth, right?
Initially, and then I remembered that I had met her once.
Let me just ask it this way.
Sure.
Is that sentence true or false? That you had never met or seen her before? True or false?
That portion of that sentence is false.
Let's get this on the record. Did John O'Keefe come into your house at 34 Fairview at any time on January 29th, 2022?
He's going to say no.
Absolutely not. I wished he had.
And you're as sure about that as you are about the statement that you had never met or seen Karen Reed in your life,
Objection.
correct?
Sustained. You can ask it differently, Mr. Jackson.
I want to get back to the waterfall.
Just so you guys know, the objections that are getting sustained right now are all argumentative objections, because he's when it comes to cross-examination, the witness is on the hot seat, right? They're in the hot seat. You are supposed to be grilling them and everything. They're going to be uncomfortable. That's just the nature of cross-examination. But some of these questions they're more statements than questions, and they're a bit provocative and kind of meant to sort of like rile them up a bit. That's when you can kind of tell, like, all right, we're getting beyond cross-examination, and now it's getting to be argumentative. So some judges are they give a lot more space for an attorney to cross-examine and be very aggressive. Other judges are a bit more sort of sensitive to an argumentative sort of style here. And so, but anyway, but I wanted to point that out, that's what those objections were for.
I know I asked you this about the hillside. I may not have asked you about this specific question about the waterfall. Did Brian Higgins say anything to you about John O'Keefe and Karen Reed walking in together at the waterfall?
No.
Did he say anything or give you any indication that he was upset about Karen Reed showing up with John O'Keefe?
No, he did not.
It appeared from your observations that John and Karen were getting along at the waterfall.
I didn't really notice, but I didn't notice anything was wrong.
They appeared pleasant,
Yes.
happy.
I don't know if they appeared happy. I didn't really notice.
They were interacting.
Interesting. That question about Brian Higgins being upset that they showed up together. The implication of that is some sort of an interest that Brian Higgins may have had in, I mean, not to make any assumptions on anyone, but either John O'Keefe or Karen Reed. I think that a lot of people would probably assume that it was Karen Reed that he would be, I suppose, interested in there. So that's just an interesting sort of like little seed that he just dropped with that question. And that actually reminds me of the super chat, which I'm so sorry I didn't bring up earlier. Stella by the Sea. Thanks so much for the super chat. My theory, J.O. goes in, confronts BH regarding KR kiss. They fight, dog reacts. Colin tries to contain dog and gets punched. Thoughts? I don't know. That hasn't come into any sort of testimony at this point, right? Like I feel like I would have remembered that if there was some testimony that Brian Higgins and Karen Reed had kissed at some point. Because I know that there's an implication in the evidence that John O'Keefe may have kissed one of the like the sister of one of his friends. I can't remember the name of the woman who had organized it. Was it Carrie? It wasn't. I don't think it was Carrie Roberts. But anyways, sister of a friend back in Bermuda. I was going to say the Bahamas, but back in Bermuda earlier in the month. So I'm almost wondering if there was like, it sounds like maybe there was some sort of like a tit for tat kind of thing of like, you kiss someone else, I'm going to kiss someone else, and then we're even. Oh, interesting. Crownless King. Legalbytes, you may have missed it when he said Brian Higgins was flirting and texting with KR a few weeks before. Okay. Yeah, I may need to revisit that. If that was Brian Albert that testified to that. Oh, Aruba, not Bermuda. Okay, thank you guys. I think that's one of those ADHD things. Mixing up Aruba and Bermuda. Yeah. I've got stories on like mixing up similar words like that. One of those Caribbean kind of places. Yeah. Okay. Thank you guys. So okay. Interesting that if that testimony came in, because I somehow missed that. Okay. All right. Well, thank you guys for that.
Interacting with others.
Yes.
You didn't notice any tension?
No.
No argument?
No.
No yelling or fighting?
Nope.
They looked like a normal, happy couple.
Yes.
Did either of them appear to you to be completely drunk?
I didn't have a ton of interaction with John or Karen that night, so I can't really say, but it didn't appear that they were drunk. No.
You had an opportunity to review the waterfall video. You did it with Mr. Lally, correct?
The only small portion of it.
Right, but even in that small portion, and based on your memory, you don't remember that anybody being stumbling, drunk, and falling down over stools and things of that nature.
No.
Okay. They appear to be acting appropriately
Yes.
and interacting with others appropriately.
Yes.
People were buying drinks for others. Is that right?
I'm sure. I don't recall exactly, but I'm sure that was going on. Yes.
Not that unusual to say, hey, I'll get this round, correct?
Yes.
You left the waterfall at 11:58. Is that right?
Yes. Approximately.
Who was invited to come over to your house upon leaving the waterfall?
Whoever wanted to, really.
You'd been drinking since about what time in the evening or in the afternoon?
9-ish.
That's when you went to the hillside?
Yes.
That's when you had your first drink?
Yes.
And you continued drinking throughout the evening consistently?
Yes.
Did you believe you were okay to drive?
Yes.
What kind of car did you have at the time?
Ford Edge.
Black?
Yes.
Who rode? Did you drive that car home from the waterfall?
Yes.
Who rode with you?
My wife and my daughter.
What other cars were in the driveway when you got there?
I don't recall. Brian Higgins' Jeep was in the driveway backing up as we pulled in.
So kind of in your way.
Yes.
In other words, you weren't going to park. You weren't going to park him in.
I didn't want to block him in.
Right. Right. So you waited until he moved his Jeep out of the way,
Yes.
and then you pulled in.
Yes.
Where in the driveway did you pull in?
I believe I pulled to the left side of the driveway.
You would have been closest to the garage, or was there a car between you and the garage?
I would have been closest to the left side walkway. I don't think there was a car in front of me, but I'm not 100%.
Mr. Albert, did you move that black Ford Edge at any point that night after you got home?
No.
Brian Higgins was the first person to actually physically get to the house. He got there before you, correct?
Yes.
Describe his Jeep.
He had a Jeep Wrangler. I believe it's white. I think it's white.
Any appendage on it?
A plow.
A snow plow on the front
Yes.
that can hydraulically go up and down.
I didn't see it that closely. I'm assuming it can, but I don't know that for sure.
After Mr. Higgins moved out of your way, out of the driveway, where did he put that Jeep?
I don't know. I don't know where he parked.
So you wouldn't have gotten to the house if you left Waterfall at 11:58. You have to get out to your car, get in your car, start it up, drive home, wait for Brian Higgins to move his Jeep, park your car, then get into the house. That's a fair assessment of the mechanism of you getting home that night, correct?
Yes.
You wouldn't have gotten into the house until, what, 12:15? Maybe 15 minutes for all that?
I would put it more, maybe 10 past 12.
Okay. 12:10 or so?
That would just be a guess.
So it could have been 12:15.
Yeah, and it could have been 12:07.
Who was inside the house when you walked in?
My nephew Colin, my son Brian, and then he had two friends, female friends. I believe it's Sarah and Julie.
What were they doing inside the house?
They were sitting at the kitchen table.
And your nephew, Colin, how old was he at the time?
I believe 17 or 18.
Describe him.
In what way?
Height, weight.
So 2.5 years ago. So he was probably 5'11", maybe 6 feet, and probably 100 and, I'm guessing 175 pounds.
Big boy.
He's
Not a small kid.
right.
I mean, bigger than me, significantly.
Yes.
Athletic guy.
Yes.
Played football.
Yes.
Good at football.
Yes.
You testified that you went to the bathroom after you arrived home, correct?
Yes. After saying hi to everybody, I went to the bathroom.
Was that upstairs or downstairs?
I'm not sure. I have a bathroom downstairs and not downstairs, but on that floor,
Please don't
and
give
then
us details
upstairs.
about the bathroom.
So
Run.
I'm not sure which one I went to.
When you came
I think
back,
it was upstairs.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean
I
to.
think it may have been upstairs, but I'm not sure.
When you came back downstairs from the bathroom or came out of the bathroom, wherever it was, you no longer saw Colin,
Yes, prior to going to the bathroom, Colin had said that he was getting picked up.
but you never saw him leave.
No,
You didn't see him leave the house, and you didn't see him get picked up by anybody.
I did not.
You didn't see a car outside waiting for him, correct?
I didn't, no.
You did give an initial statement on the morning of the 29th to Michael Lank, about 7 a.m., is that right?
Officer Lank was in the house at that time and speaking to all of us, really.
And you've admitted that you have known Michael Lank for many years, is that right?
Yes.
Did you see that as a problem?
In what way?
Conflict of interest?
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll let him have it. Did you see that as a conflict?
No.
You were asked who was present at the house that night, the night before, right?
Yes.
You stated the following people were at the house that night, quote, in response to Officer Lank's question, at some point during the time in question. That's how he phrased the question. Who was at the house at some point during the time in question? You understood that, right?
I don't recall his question, no.
You knew that he was asking who was in the house, right?
That's right, yes.
So you mentioned Brian Albert Jr.,
Yes,
your son. You mentioned Caitlin Albert, your eldest.
yes,
You mentioned Julie Nagel.
yes,
You mentioned Brian Higgins.
yes.
And then you added the detail that Caitlin Albert had left your house about 12:15 a.m., correct?
No,
You didn't say that?
I did not.
I may have just a moment. Your Honor.
Yes.
This is the second person who has testified to that. Well, or that is documented as having been interviewed by police and telling the police in that interview that Caitlin Albert, their daughter, left at like 12:15. She was the first to leave. The first person that we heard that from was Nicole Albert, who then testified on the stand the other day on Friday. She said, no, Caitlin was actually the last one to leave, not the first one to leave. So there's some weirdness going on with Caitlin Albert and Colin Albert, and those are both in the younger adult generation of the Albert family. I know that there are a lot of people that are thinking that there is sort of a parents protecting their kids kind of vibe going on. I don't know enough like detail about, what is alleged to have happened involving Caitlin Albert, Colin Albert to really have put the pieces together. But I'm guessing that at some point we are going to hear testimony that is going to line up those dots for us.
May I approach you? Honor?
Yes. Show Mr. Lally.
I'm sorry. So you don't have to sit and read the entire thing. There's right at the top of this post-it, there's a word that says next. If you would read that area, that next few sentences, let me know when you're finished.
Mr. W, is it possible that the real story is the kids did this? Parents are covering. I don't know. I don't know enough
Yes.
from the background yet, but I think that there are some people that are saying that.
Mr. Albert, did you have an opportunity to review that portion of a report?
I did.
Did that refresh your recollection about a conversation that you had along with your wife with Officer Lank?
Yes,
Isn't it true that Officer Lank asked you and your wife who else was in the house that night aside from the names already mentioned? And the names mentioned were Brian Albert Jr., Caitlin Albert, Julie Nagel, and Brian Higgins, quote, who is a friend of Brian Albert Sr., end quote. Is that right?
that's what the report says, yes.
And then the report goes on to say, they advised me that their daughter Caitlin left the house around 12:15 a.m. when she was picked up by her boyfriend, Kristen Morris, right?
That's what the report says, yes.
Do you think Officer Lank got it wrong?
Perhaps, yes.
Did you
Which I will say that in terms of impeachment, right? He's impeaching him with a statement that was taken down by an officer. This is not some sort of notes that he himself has taken. This is not testimony that he himself has given. It's certainly not under penalty of perjury. So there's it's not a perfect impeachment. Similar with Nicole Albert, the same thing happened. There was the statement that she made on the stand, and then they brought in the report from the interview, which said otherwise, saying that they had told the police officer that Caitlin had left first out of anyone else, and that she left at 12:15 a.m. I don't know. I'm wondering if the timing also is going to be. I'm wondering if the timing is also going to be lined up with some sort of digital forensic evidence or something, and maybe afterwards the parents realized, oh, Caitlin left like way after, like almost 2 hours later than we originally said she did, and the phone forensics say line up with the fact that she left much later. So I don't know. Maybe that's part of it there. Is there something nefarious that actually happened, or is this just some big inconsistency between the two, and there's really nothing else behind that? I don't know. I mean, hopefully we will find out.
You say that Caitlin left about 12:15?
No,
Did Nicole say in your presence that Caitlin left about 12:15?
she did not.
At any point, did Officer Lank ask you what time Caitlin left?
I don't recall him asking that. It was a very chaotic morning, and I don't remember him saying that.
So in fact, if he wrote that sentence in the report that you just read, he's just making that up.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
I'll ask it a different way. If that's what Officer Lank recalls, he's just wrong, right?
Yes,
Anything else that he's wrong about in there?
I didn't read the whole report.
At no point, isn't it true that at no point during that interview did you admit or mention that Colin Albert had been at the house that night?
I don't believe I did, no.
At no point during that interview did your wife, Nicole, in your presence, admit or mention that Colin Albert was in the house that night?
No.
So did both of you conveniently forget that Colin was there?
Objection.
I'll ask it a different way.
Sustained.
Did you forget that Colin had been there?
No,
Is there a reason that you left his name out?
because he wasn't there. He left when we got there. He wasn't there for the duration of the time that we had that night.
Except for the fact that you just testified that you never saw him. Right?
Well, he said he was getting picked up, and then he was gone, so I assumed he left.
People say a lot of things, but you didn't see him leave, and you didn't see him in the regular floor of the house, according to you, correct?
Right,
Ground floor of the house.
right. He was no longer in my house, so he left.
Well, you didn't search the house, did you?
No,
At the time, right? And you never saw him leave.
I didn't physically see him leave, no.
You also gave a statement to Michael Proctor later that morning. It was about noon, maybe it was in the afternoon, noon, 12:30, something like that.
Are you asking?
On the 29th, you later, after you spoke with Officer Lank, you later were interviewed by Trooper Michael Proctor over at Jim McCabe's house. Do you remember that?
Yes.
Colin's name was never mentioned then either.
No, because Colin wasn't at the house for the duration of the night.
So when they said who was in the house, talked about Brian Albert, Caitlin Albert,
Yes,
folks in the house,
yes. And there
Nagel,
were other people in the house prior to us arriving. I didn't mention them either.
who's that?
There were some females, friends that were over prior to our arrival, and
But you never even saw them.
no,
So you have no idea who was there and who wasn't there before you got there.
Yeah. That's
no, I know that
different.
there were people at the house
admittedly.
prior to me getting there.
Mr. Albert, the question that had been posed to you by several officers was, who did you see in your home when you got there, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
I don't believe that's how it was asked, no.
But Colin's name was never mentioned. It's left out.
I testified multiple times that Colin was there when we arrived.
Oh, you did it after the fact, right?
Yes, when I was at,
You knew that if witness knew that Colin was there.
Objection.
Sustained.
In your initial reports to the police, his name was never mentioned, was it?
I did not mention it, no.
And Nicole did not mention it in your presence, did she?
In my presence, no.
It is weird for him to have like, for that to have slipped his mind when he is someone who is experienced in police interviews, having had a long career as a police officer himself. So like that, I can understand a lay person, Nicole has been around police officers for a long time, so maybe not, but I don't know. But she herself is not a police officer. I would give her more leeway for forgetting that than him, because of the fact that he knows what goes on in these police interviews. It does smell a little bit worse coming from him than it does from her, in my personal opinion.
Let's talk about Caitlin Albert, your eldest. You told Officer Lank that your daughter, well, according to Officer Lank, let me rephrase the question based on our colloquy back and forth. According to Officer Lank, you're aware that he wrote he was told she was gone by 12:15, correct?
That's what he wrote in the report, yes.
If Caitlin was gone by 12:15, she would not have been there when John and Karen arrived to the house, correct? Because they didn't arrive for 15 minutes later.
But she was at the house, so that would be a hypothetical.
Okay, so fine, hypotheticals. Let me ask you a hypothetical. If in fact Caitlin was gone by 12:15, that would mean hypothetically she would not have been there when John and Karen arrived 15 minutes later.
Objection.
Sustained.
When you were interviewed by Officer Lank that morning, other people were in the room, not just you and Officer Lank, correct?
Yes, I wouldn't consider that morning to be an interview with Officer Lank.
More of a conversation.
Yes,
During that conversation, Nicole was there.
yes,
She was in earshot.
yes,
When she was involved in the conversation, you were within earshot.
yes.
Brian Jr. would have been within earshot.
Brian Jr. wasn't downstairs most of that morning, so he may not have been.
But he was there for part of the morning.
Yeah, but I'm not sure that he was there at the time. My Officer Lank was asking questions.
The fact of the matter is, notwithstanding what Officer Lank wrote that you said about Caitlin leaving at 12:15, he did not leave at 12:15. Isn't that right?
She did not, no.
As a matter of fact, in truth, except for the people who lived there, Caitlin was the very last person to leave that location that morning, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And she's admitted that she did not leave until nearly 2 a.m., 1:45, correct?
Objection.
Sustained.
You're aware that she did not leave until 1:45 or thereafter. Is that right?
I believe that's around the time, yes.
Were you trying to cover for Caitlin so your daughter would not be wrapped up in this investigation?
No.
I mean, it
But as
kind
a
of looks like
reminder-
it. And the thing is, maybe there was nothing to it. Like, maybe there was nothing to it. Maybe she really didn't see anything. Maybe she, but the thing is, like, it does look a certain way. It does look a certain way to a lot of people. Especially coming from a cop. And the thing is, and I know I've said this so many times, and I have a feeling I'm going to keep saying this a million times over in this trial, but these bad facts coming out on cross-examination as opposed to direct examination always looks worse. If this was just a simple inconsistency and it turns out that Officer Lank just took that information down wrong, which is entirely possible, by the way. It could be that Officer Lank just wrote it down wrong. he got mixed up between Caitlin Albert and one of the other many Alberts that were there that morning, that night. You know what I mean? Like, that's entirely possible. If that's the case, though, it's on the prosecution in direct examination to address that inconsistency head on, to be like, okay, now you also did an interview with Officer Lank on, the day of January 29th, 2022, correct? Yeah. I mean, and obviously maybe don't lead because it's on direct examination, but basically go through those steps of talking about, like, you talked about the ordering of, who left. Now, did you give an interview on this? Okay. And then, did you, tell, to your recollection, did you give the same kind of ordering to Officer Lank, or, did you remember things differently then? I don't know. Like, there's a way of going through that on direct examination where they can actually flag for the jury, hey, this interview report has some inconsistencies in there, but it's not my fault. It's not the witness's fault. That is all Officer Lank. He wrote it down wrong, and that is on him. Like, police officers in Canton PD are messing up left and right, using red Solo cups and putting them in stop and shop bags, and that's the way that they gather evidence here. That is not the fault of the witnesses. Whatever they decide to write down in their report is up to them. Witness has no control over that. It's like they could have gone through something like that with both Nicole and with Brian. They should have seen that kind of a thing coming. So again, it would have looked way less suspicious than it does now. But I mean, at this point, we now have two witnesses who have testified to almost identical times that they now say are incorrect, of their own daughter leaving. And there's also this weirdness about Colin being there, Colin not being there that night, that it's just, I mean,
Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio?
So yeah, I mean, at this point, it's worth a don't be suspicious. All right, let's continue.
When you were spoken to by the first two officers who discussed who was in the house, you never mentioned Colin was even there, correct?
Objection.
We've gone over that. Next question, please. Sustained.
If Colin was gone, just like Caitlin was gone, that would eliminate them from ever being at the house at the same time as John O'Keefe and Karen Dewey, right?
Objection.
Sustained.
On January 29th, about 11:30 or 12, we talked about the fact that you were interviewed by Michael Proctor at Jen McCabe's house, correct?
Yes.
You knew at the time that the state police were looking to interview Jennifer McCabe about her understanding of what had happened the night before.
Objection.
Sustained.
And also, I'm so sorry, I missed this earlier. LK Ryden, thank you for flagging it for me. Thank you so much for being a member for 2 months, member of Bike Club. By the way, I think they've focused so much on Colin because the defense is going to say John got angry at Colin and Brian went too far defending him, killing him. I mean, that's another possibility. I mean, some of these possibilities that are popping up with these different interpersonal relationships are really interesting. But I mean, we'll see, right? We've got so much trial to go. Thanks so much for the member chat, and thanks for being a member for 2 months.
You were notified that the state police were going to interview Jen McCabe.
Objection.
I'll allow it. Were you notified that?
No.
You knew the subject matter of an interview with Jen McCabe was going to happen the subject matter of the night before was going to happen over at Jen McCabe's house. That's why you went there, right?
Objection.
No.
I'll allow it.
No.
Isn't it true that you knew you had been notified, or at least you believed that an interview with Jen McCabe as part of an official police investigation was going to occur at her house?
Yes.
You were not asked by the police to join her, correct?
No.
You had no official reason to be at Jen McCabe's house, correct?
What do you, I don't know what you mean by official reason.
You were not working the investigation yourself.
No.
You were a witness, correct?
Right.
So you had no official reason to be at Jen McCabe's house during an interview with Jen McCabe.
Objection.
Y'all allow it.
No.
So, but before she gave her statement, you made sure that you were right there to monitor that interview and exactly what was said, correct?
Objection.
Were you in her house when Jen McCabe was interviewed by Michael Proctor?
Her house, yes.
You had gone to her house.
That is weird. That is weird. Why do you need to be there? All of these interviews should have been individual without the presence of anyone else. Like, because we don't want them to start lining up their testimony with one another. And the fact that this is a police officer that should know that he's not a newbie either. He's been in there for a long time as a police officer. So that's the thing that's a little, I mean, it continues, right? Cookie for you. Everything sustained. Are the questions that badly formed? It feels like he can't get into anything. In certain parts, he's asking questions, but he's getting objected to and sustained on argumentative objections here. Baz 80s, thanks so much for being a member for 2 months. I think defense risks getting bogged down with who left when is confusing. Like the stream, everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, if you guys haven't done so already, please do like the stream. It does help us with adding more folks to the Boston Tea Party, as I like to call this trial, because there's so much tea spillage. Yeah, I mean, it could, there is going too far in a particular question or series of questions. And also there are a number of questions that I've got saved up here. There is here, let me get this one though, because this one's relatively recent. Marion Patera, I think. Patera. Question: why would a lawyer ask a hypothetical question on cross? It has speculation written all over. An objection will get sustained inevitably. Hypothetical questions can be actually a very valuable tool during a direct or a cross-examination, because what you're doing is you're taking it out of this specific environment, and then you're setting up a similar sort of, you could call it like a multiverse, basically, where you're assigning the same kind of logic and then saying like, okay, now let's apply that logic here. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm explaining that very well, but that can be very, very useful. But the question is it done properly? Because there is such a thing as an improper hypothetical. That's also an objection that can be objected to, and judges will rule against that if necessary. Also, U.S. Galucci, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bite Club. And I will not hold it against you that you are an Aggie, because I went to UT Law School, but also had some friends from UT Law who had also been Aggies in undergrad. So like I said, I'm not going to hold it against you. Welcome to Bite Club. Very happy to have you here. On Fridays, we typically have a Bite Club members only live stream at 10 a.m. East Coast time. But this week we've got trial all this week. So Saturday, we will be able to do our members only this week. Hope you can join us for it. But thank you so much for supporting the channel.
That's correct.
I did.
You went there before she gave the interview.
Yes.
So you were there in her house during the entirety of her interview, correct?
I believe so, yes.
And importantly, Jen McCabe knew you were in her house during that interview, correct?
I assume she knew, yes.
I mean, you're in her house after all.
Yes.
I want to get back to 34 Fairview if I could. In the early morning hours of January 29th, Brian Higgins directly followed you into the house after you walked in, correct?
Could you rephrase that?
Sure. You walked in, even though there was some moving of cars, you were the first one to walk into the house. And Brian Higgins followed you.
Yes.
Nicole and Caitlin then came in shortly after that.
I think Nicole and Caitlin probably came in around the same time as me,
Did you make
and
another-
then Brian Higgins.
Sorry. Did you make another drink once you walked into the house?
Did I make a drink?
Did you make a drink? Grab a beer?
Yes.
Okay. When I say make a drink, did you get a drink?
Yes.
What drink did you get?
I don't know. Probably just would have been whatever was at the house, a beer or something.
Okay. Did Higgins have another drink?
I don't know.
What did you do? What did you and Brian Higgins do once you were inside the house?
We just kind of hung out, talked.
At any point, did you and Brian Higgins go down to the basement?
No, I don't remember going to the basement.
You don't remember going to the basement, or you didn't go to the basement?
No, I didn't go to the basement.
This is, I think, where we are going to really start to understand what the defense's theory is on what they think happened to John O'Keefe, because Brian Albert, I think, has something very much to do with it. So I think this is going to be very important going into this section here. Grizzly, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Very, very happy to have you here. I hope you heard that about members only live stream. Hope you can join us for that. And yeah, thanks so much for supporting the channel. All right. So what's this about the basement, huh?
Did Brian Higgins go to the basement?
Not that I know of.
And you didn't go upstairs to the second floor, did you?
I think I did go upstairs, yes.
Isn't it true that Brian Higgins has never been upstairs in your house?
Prior to that night?
Ever, including that night specifically.
I don't think that's true, no.
You owned a dog at the time, correct?
Yes,
The German Shepherd named Chloe.
yes. Mix.
Describe that dog as being not great with strangers. Isn't that true?
I did describe it that way, yes.
You testified that, quote, it started barking because it realized that people were downstairs, end quote, right?
Yes,
Chloe had a penchant for barking when she heard people, correct?
no, not necessarily.
She did that night.
Yeah, I think she wanted to use the bathroom.
Well, that's not what you said in your testimony. You said it started barking because it realized there were people downstairs, right?
Right.
So your German Shepherd, probably a decent dog, guard dog, if she heard commotion and people, she would bark.
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Obviously, if Chloe hears commotion and people, she's apt to bark. That's the only question.
No,
So just that night, out of nowhere, first time ever, Chloe starts barking when people walk into the house.
no, it's not the first time ever, but she didn't bark often.
Okay, but she did bark that night, right?
Yes,
And the reason that you gave under oath for why she started barking was because there were people downstairs milling about, right?
yes,
So in that instance, on January 29th, in the early morning hours, she was barking because she heard people.
well, I can't say why she was barking.
Well, you did say why she was
Yeah.
barking,
I let her out to use the bathroom, so I think that's probably why.
except your testimony was it started barking because it realized there were people downstairs. Those are your words, Mr. Albert, not
Right.
mine.
Okay,
Just bring in the
You stand by
testimony to
those?
impeach
yes,
him.
Okay. You ultimately did let Chloe out to go to the bathroom, correct?
yes,
And then you allowed her to stay downstairs and you monitored her with the others who were in the house. Isn't that right?
yes,
As a matter of fact, you testified in that state grand jury, the same April grand jury, April of 2022. So I let it go out to the bathroom. I let it back in. I kind of monitored it a little because we usually don't have people over the house and the dog's not great with strangers, period. So I was just making sure that the dog was all right with the people that were over, end quote, correct?
yes,
So in fact, you did keep Chloe downstairs at least for a period of time with people that were over, right?
yes, for a few minutes, I think.
Mr. Albert, after you learned that there were questions being raised about John's injuries and dog bites and scratches, in May of 2022, you got rid of that dog, did you not?
Objection.
Sustained. You can ask it differently.
Argumentative.
point-
It's got rid of, I think.
Your family got rid of Chloe.
Chloe was rehomed in May
And we can use
2023.
whatever words we want to, rehomed, rehoused, whatever, but you got rid of her. She's no longer part of the Albert family, right?
Objection.
We'll allow that.
Right.
When did you get rid of her?
So Chloe was rehomed in, I believe, May
Of 2022,
of 2022.
just months after the incident that we're discussing.
Well, after it was involved, she was involved in a dog fight with another dog out front.
Right, but that's also after the incident that
Yes.
we're discussing.
Yes, May.
That's a family pet that you had for 6 years or 7 years?
Approximately 6 or 7 years. Not
Your
sure.
explanation just now for having gotten rid of that dog is because it bit another dog and ultimately sent 2 women to the hospital, correct?
I believe 2 women went to the hospital. Yes.
But you took no action to get rid of Chloe until after you knew that serious questions were being raised about John O'Keefe's,
Objection.
correct?
Sustain.
At some point, you did.
Doesn't matter that that was sustained. Doesn't who cares about the answer to that question, right? I mean, what was he even gonna say in response to that question? The whole power in that question is in the question itself. Also, Lulia Descalo, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Very, very happy to have you here. Hope you heard that about our members only live stream normally on Fridays, but on Saturday this week because of the trial, 10 a.m. East Coast time. Hope you can join us.
You did realize there were questions being raised about John O'Keefe's injuries on his arm, correct?
Objection.
Don't allow that. Did you realize that?
I heard some talk about it. Yes.
As of January of 2022, John O'Keefe had never been in your house, had he?
John O'Keefe was never in my house before or after that date.
Certainly, John O'Keefe, you would agree with me, he would count, were he in your house, he would count as a stranger to Chloe. Never met her.
Hypothetically, yes.
I want to ask a couple of questions about your house. I know there's multiple bedrooms. Are all the bedrooms on the top floor?
Yes.
Okay. How many bedrooms?
5.
As we're looking at your house, from the street looking at your house, are your bedroom windows, your and Nicole's bedroom windows, visible from the street?
Yes.
Which windows would they be?
If you were facing the house, they would be far left corner.
Upper or lower?
Upper.
Upper left corner.
Yes.
How many windows? 3 or 2 service that bedroom?
2.
Your Honor, with the court's permission, could I display Exhibit 66?
Okay.
Do you see what is displayed on that television?
Yes.
What does that appear to be to you?
The house at 34 Fairview Road.
Okay, understanding this is a graphic representation, not a photograph. Do you see the windows that you just described servicing your bedroom on that graphic?
Yes.
Are they right there?
Yes.
Okay, upper left, 2 windows, correct?
Yes.
And those overlook what part of the lawn?
The front lawn.
Okay, front lawn toward the left side of the house, not toward the driveway, correct?
Right. I mean, it's the whole front lawn, but yeah.
Right, but they're toward the left side of the house.
The windows are, yes. I thought you asked about the view.
Right.
So the view's the whole front yard.
I'm just trying to make the record, the spoken record as clear as possible.
Right.
They're on the left side of the house.
Yes.
They directly overlook this portion of the lawn, the left side of the lawn,
Yes.
furthest from the driveway.
Yes.
We can take that down. Where's your bed, or where was your bed inside that room as relates to the windows?
I'm just trying to think of how to describe it. So the bed would be in the middle of the bedroom.
Okay, it's a bad question on my part because we haven't done that. Let's do it this way. How many feet from the windows would the closest part of your bed be to those windows?
Maybe 5 feet. 6 feet.
You indicated that Nicole came to bed about 2 o'clock in the morning.
Yes.
Where was the dog?
The dog was in my room.
And she was sleeping on a mat in your room.
Yes.
And that mat is also about 6 feet from the windows.
Yes.
6 feet being from me to Miss Little, maybe this far,
Could be, yes. Maybe a little further, but yes,
maybe this far.
maybe.
It's a relatively quiet street generally, Fairview.
Yes.
Not an enormous amount of through traffic,
No.
not a busy freeway or a highway, correct?
No.
Not an especially noisy street,
The street, no.
especially at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning, right?
Right.
Where were you at 6:03 on the morning of January 29th, 2022?
I was sleeping in my room.
6 feet from that window.
Yes.
Was Nicole in bed with you?
Yes.
Had you taken any medication the night before?
No.
Were you on any sedatives,
No.
sleeping pills?
No.
Were you wearing a sleep apnea machine?
No.
Were you wearing an eye mask?
No.
Were you wearing earplugs?
No.
You shortly thereafter became aware that 6 emergency vehicles, including a fire engine, police cruisers, and unmarked police vehicles, a civilian SUV, were all parked in front of your house that morning, correct?
I'm not aware of what type of vehicles were parked there, no.
You seen photographs since this incident?
Of the vehicles out front?
Right.
No.
Are you aware that all of those vehicles had their engines running?
No.
Are you aware that all the emergency vehicles at least had their lights on, flashing lights?
Do
No.
you have blackout
Are
curtains?
you aware that there were
I wanna know.
responders outside their vehicles traipsing around your lawn?
Was I aware?
Were you aware at the time?
No.
Were you aware that there were emergency responders, first responders, who were talking to each other over the din of the wind and the snow
What?
to communicate with each other?
No.
You're aware that there were 3 women on your lawn at one point?
Just only after the fact.
And at least one of those women was screaming to the top of her lungs at 6:03?
No.
Again, your German Shepherd was 6 feet from the window, correct?
I don't know that for sure.
That's where a mat was.
Well, that doesn't mean that's where she always is. She also sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Oh, so now Chloe's in the closet.
I didn't say she was in the closet. I said she sleeps in the closet area sometimes.
Was she sleeping in the closet area that morning?
I don't remember.
Likelihood is she's sleeping on that mat 5 or 6 feet from that window, correct?
Objection.
I don't know.
And you're
Well, so I've seen some comments about, Chloe being alerted by all of this noise and movement and light and whatnot, even if they weren't. I can see it going either way because some dogs are extremely alert like that. Other dogs, not so much. They'll sleep through a lot of things. Thinking about Indy, yeah, I think, she might be alerted to that kind of thing. But would she alert us is another question. Obviously, she's not a German Shepherd. Not even a German Shepherd mix. German Shepherds are, I think maybe more prone to being guard dogs and like protective of territory, perhaps. I don't know. But I am curious to hear people's thoughts on that. To me, I can see some dogs being one way, other dogs being another way.
Your explanation, and by the way, we've already talked about this. Earlier that day, you've already indicated she was barking because she heard people and noises downstairs when you guys came in the house.
Yes.
And your explanation is that you and Nicole and Chloe, the German Shepherd, all slept through the entirety of that commotion on your front lawn.
Yes.
To be clear, you are a trained first responder.
Yes.
Yet during that entire event, after you were awakened, all that chaos on your front lawn, you never came out of your house to assist or investigate in any matter whatsoever. Did you, Mr. Albert?
Once I was awakened?
Correct.
No.
We've talked about this a little bit, but I want to ask you a couple of other questions about the layout of the house. The house is sitting on top of a basement, correct?
Yes.
Or was at the time. Describe how you get to the basement from inside the house if you come in the front door. And when I say, I'm sorry to do this, I don't mean to interrupt you. There's 2 front doors that you can go in, correct?
Yes.
For purposes of my question, Mr. Albert, I'm going to talk about the one that's right in front of you, the obvious one, as the front door, and the one to the right of it as you're looking at the house is the side door. Okay?
Okay.
Because I don't know how else to describe it. If you come in the front door, describe for the jurors, where is the basement door as compared to that?
So you walk straight ahead. You pass the kitchen dining room area opening on your right-hand side, and there's a door on the left.
How many paces? The door opens, how many paces to walk over and grab that door handle?
I'm not sure, maybe 10?
10 full paces.
Maybe, yeah.
So
Maybe 8, maybe 8.
Mr. Albert, it's about 4 long steps, correct?
Well, I don't know. You asked paces, so, 6 feet,
6 feet.
6 to 8 feet, maybe.
Got it. What was the basement used for in January of 2022?
So the basement had a weight room in one of the rooms, and the other room was nothing at the time. It had been damaged, water damage due to an overflowed toilet.
So part of the flooring had been ripped up,
Yes,
and that opened up some slab concrete downstairs.
yes,
There was also some plywood downstairs.
yes,
There were a couple of mats where the actual weights were, so they're not slamming down onto concrete.
yes,
But there was a good amount of that floor that was just exposed concrete.
yes,
The workout equipment would include things like what? Barbells, dumbbells,
yes,
heavy weights,
yes,
heavy bars.
Yep.
Made from metal.
yep.
Once you're down in the basement, by the way, there's 2 flights that you go down at angles to get to the basement. A series of steps, a landing, take a left, another series of steps, and you stand on the basement.
Yes, not a long staircase, very small, but
Right. I mean, it's narrow and tight, but in other words, you don't just walk straight down a staircase. You go down to a landing, turn left,
turns a little.
go down, turn left again, and now you're in the basement.
Yes.
If you wanted to move something large or heavy out of that basement without having to go through the house, could you do that?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
Could you rephrase the question?
I'll say it again. If you wanted to move something large or heavy out of that basement without having to go through the main house, could you do that?
Yes, I mean, it would depend what it was, obviously, how big it was, or
How would you do that?
there's a bulkhead door you can use.
Got it. Where does that bulkhead door come out?
It comes out to the backyard right at the kitchen area. You can see it from the kitchen.
And right to the left of that is the side fence.
Yes,
And directly through that side fence is the front yard.
yes,
The same side of the front yard as John O'Keefe's body was found.
yes.
Interesting.
Your Honor, I would ask at this point to mark a video.
Oh. What kind of a video? Is it related to the basement?
Just a moment, Your Honor.
Yes.
Interesting. I'm intrigued. Where is this going? Let's see if I can.
Good time. Yes, thank you.
All right, well, it's about 20 minutes.
Okay, 20-minute
All right, please.
recess. So we'll get
Follow me, please.
almost caught up then. Just about. Okay. And actually, let me get some questions here, because I've got a bunch here that I've been saving up, and I want to make sure that we don't get too behind on those. Matt the Angel, if the prosecution continues to not really prove Karen Reed did anything, do you think the defense will evolve the case they present? I don't think so, and I say that because I think they are very experienced attorneys, and I think it's not good for them to evolve the case beyond what they've promised in their opening statements. What you say happened should be what you say happened from the very beginning of this case, because at the closing arguments, the jury is going to look at look, you made all these promises in the opening statement. Are you moving the goalposts on us? To both the defense and the prosecution, they're gonna be kind of wondering that. LK Ryden, well, I remember, I suspect the reason they are going into calling is that the defendant is going to say that John got angry. Oh, okay. I think we got this earlier with the member chat. Okay, thank you. El Borate, Legalbytes, does attorney-client exist for prosecution and a witness? No. No. Unless the attorney also separately represents that other witness on some other matter, in which case it would be a different conversation, different matters that they would be talking about, which would be confidential. It doesn't cover every single conversation that you have with someone. But the prosecution's client is the state. So conversations that they have with the witness are not confidential. Janet G. Legalbytes, when the judge says move it on, drives me a little nuts, almost like I'm tired of hearing this, give it up. Well, every time I've heard it in this case, I've actually kind of agreed, like, okay, you're getting stuck in the weeds. Let's get this train rolling forward more, because you're not going to get what you are trying to get from this witness. Like, let's keep this rolling. But I do understand how other people can take it differently. Nigo Kiski, question. The other day you mentioned that witnesses aren't supposed to be coached. Are lawyers ever caught doing that? How severe of an infraction is it? I mean, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. The way that they would get coached is if the witness admits on the stand to the specific things that they talked about with the attorney. Sometimes it happens. So it's rare. It's rare, especially if the witness knows what they're saying and the implications of what they're saying. It's possible, but not often. Baz 80s, what is a grand jury hearing? So sorry if it's a stupid question. It's not a stupid question at all. So it's a part of criminal procedure. So in a criminal case, typically in these kinds of cases, there will be a grand jury hearing where you have a grand jury. So the jury in a criminal case, in a trial like this, is technically called a petit jury, or like a small jury, jury of 12 people, and the grand jury is a grand jury. But it's more or less the same thing these days. It used to have more of a meaning in terms of size of number of jurors on that jury. But basically, it's where the prosecution presents a case and says, we think that this meets the standard of being able to try this case further in a criminal court of law. It's a very low standard for a grand jury to actually indict a criminal defendant. And like I said before, it's not, the defense doesn't really get to put any sort of like counter case on. The one exception is like New Mexico has apparently some rules on certain things that the prosecution has to allow to come in from the defense if they so choose to present sort of like counter evidence or what have you. There are a certain number of things that they need to be able to provide to the defense. But in most jurisdictions, like everywhere else that I've heard of, it is incredibly easy to indict someone. This is why Veronica BIC in the chat, ham sandwiches. There's a very Carolyn V for indicting sandwiches. There's a very famous quote that grand juries are so easy that if you really wanted to, you could indict a ham sandwich. There's a reason for that. They're known for being incredibly easy to overcome by the prosecution. Rob Inson question. Someone remind me who Higgins is. I lost track. Brian Higgins is the ATF agent who is also friends with Brian Albert. He was there the night that they were at the waterfall. He was also there at 34 Fairview Road. And it seems that there are some questions about some of his motives, perhaps some of his activities here. So I guess we're slowly sort of getting that onion peeled back as well. Phantom Split, Legalbytes. It was Jackson who asked Brian Albert if he heard about Higgins flirting with Reed. Albert denied hearing it or seeing it. It was not testimony, though this shows the power of the question. Aha. Okay. So there's been a suggestion that is something that has happened. Thank you for that clarification. Yeah, because that's interesting. Divine Inhale with Donna Clifford. Question, did the autopsy detail what could have made that gash in his head? I have not actually seen the medical examiner's report, but we will be hearing all about that from the medical examiner at some point. Medical examiner is on the prosecution's witness list. So, typically we hear from the medical examiner. I would imagine that we will be in this case as well. So hopefully that's coming sooner rather than later, because I have so many questions about these injuries. I know a lot of other people do as well. And I would like to see that testimony sooner rather than later. Baz 80s question, what's the big thing with the Ford Edge? Why is it important if he moved it or not? I think that the big deal with the Ford Edge is the fact that it looks a lot like the Lexus SUV. That's my understanding. Beyond that, I don't have all that much information on it. That's about the extent of what I know about the importance of it. Well, I think we're going to find out some more about that Ford Edge as well. Divine Inhale with Donna Clifford question. Do you think we will see text from Karen's phone with Higgins? I kind of hope so. I mean, if there is something there, I would like to see it. El Borate. Was it ever mentioned that Brian Jr.'s job was in the Navy? I heard San Diego. I wondered if he was SEAL or SWCC. I think that what Brian Albert testified on direct examination on Friday, if I remember correctly, was that he's a Marine. I don't know if that's Brian Jr. specifically, but he said that one of his twins is a Marine. I know that Christopher Albert, Brian's brother, the pizzeria owner, he testified that his son is in the Navy. So, Marines, Navy, don't come at me, Marines. I know it's not the same thing, but they're very closely related. So both of them could have been stationed in San Diego as having been Marine or Navy. I know Camp Pendleton is very, very close to San Diego. I'm from this whole area. I'm from actually not far from Camp Pendleton, very familiar with Pendleton. And also I went to undergrad in San Diego as well. So, I'm a bit familiar with some of these matters to a certain degree. So I think he said Marines, if I remember correctly. David S. Question, the dead guy has bite marks on him from a dog. Well, that is what the defense is theorizing in this case. This is what they say. The marks on the arm, where did they come from? Defense says that they are from a dog. Prosecution says that is road rash from the car. I don't know one way or another myself. I am squarely on the fence. But I'm waiting for more testimony, of course. David S. If the dead guy had dog bites on him, why can't they tell what type of dog it was? I don't know. I've never looked at dog bite marks for forensics or anything like that in a case. So I'm personally waiting for all of the experts to testify on this stuff to see what seems most likely. Can you tell if it's from a particular type of dog? I mean, I would imagine from the size of a dog, you could probably make some determinations potentially because of the fact that there's different sizes of jaws between different types of dogs. Like a Pomeranian is going to have a different kind of a bite mark than a Labrador or a German Shepherd or a Malinois. You know what I mean? So those will all have potentially some different kind of stuff. Baz 80s. What's the difference between prep and coaching? Prep is basically when you might go through reviewing some of the evidence, just kind of going over what that person has testified to before, what they had seen in surveillance and things like that. But Coaching is where the attorney kind of feeds them like, hey, this is what we'd like you to testify to. This is what is super helpful for our case. Sometimes it's with a wink and a nudge. Sometimes it's a little bit more blunt. But coaching is not okay. Prepping is totally okay. And going through this is what we anticipate the other side to go through. This is what we plan to go through. This is what you have testified to in the past. Like that's generally okay. Flash Fan 85 question: do you think Karen Reed will testify? Man, I don't know. She has made a lot of statements already to the press, so that makes me think maybe, but she doesn't need to at this point in the trial, in my opinion. There's also this concept of when you're the defense, you also don't want to, if you're ahead, you don't want to snatch failure from the jaws you don't want to snatch defeat from the jaws of victory. Okay. Yeah, I kind of messed that up, but I think you get what I mean. Cy Boozled question: have we talked about the Judge Cough's prosecution objects thing? Thoughts? Oh, someone has mentioned that before, that there was a cough and then an objection. I have yet to notice it myself, to be honest with you, but some others have mentioned that before. Phantom Split: I think the Ford Edge is important because during opening, the defense said the snowplow driver saw the Edge on the street around 3 a.m. just in front of where O'Keefe was found. Oh, okay. I may have missed that detail. Rob Inson also asked, who's Jackson? Alan Jackson, the defense attorney. So sorry about that. I at this point, I'm just referring to the attorneys by their names a lot because of, there are a number of them, but I could have also said, reminded folks that that's one of the defense attorneys. The Lucy on Legalbytes: a Ford Edge is supposedly spotted on the road by the Albert's house by a city snowplow employee that investigating officer said never plowed the street. Defense talked about it in open. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Crownless King: the plow driver claimed he couldn't replow the street at 3 a.m. because the Ford Edge was in the road. There you go. All right. Dionysia DeClo: what's your thoughts about the way he is testifying so far? I think that he's a very savvy witness. He definitely has testified before on certain parts where Alan Jackson, the defense attorney, is really trying to push on some of these points, like, the whole grand jury testimony of, I never met Karen Reed before, or I had never met her before at all, never in my life, and he pressed him on that with the prior statement from the grand jury. And then the witness was kind of pushing back to be like, well, that's not the full statement that I made. Like, that's a good move by a witness, to be honest with you. That's someone who is not getting railroaded easily on cross-examination. Not every witness is going to do that. He stuck to his guns in a similar way that Nicole Albert stuck to her guns on the whole, did you talk to Jennifer McCabe on the phone at 6:03 a.m. Or what have you, when those phone calls were brought in, and she stuck to her guns on that. She was like, I never talked to her. I did not talk to her on the phone. Never talked to her on the phone that morning. The first time I talked to her that day was when she bombed into my room. It was I think the term that she used. And she said that was the first time that she came in and talked to her. So I think that there are some things that seem shady. Yes, there are some things that seem shady, but I don't know that this cross-examination has fully, pierced into this idea that John O'Keefe did, in fact, make his way into 34 Fairview Road. And in my opinion, folks are free to disagree with me. I know that opinions range all over the board on this issue, but for me, I still haven't quite seen enough, to really press in on that idea. But, the defense is making plenty of points for their cause. All right. Let's go on post recess, I should say.
Thank you. Please be seated. Quarterback.
All right, are we all squared away?
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, Carolyn V, but is it enough for reasonable doubt? Yes, there's plenty of reasonable doubt, in my opinion, to prevent the prosecution from getting a conviction here. And that, for me, is all coming from the investigation itself. Like that for me is just like, there's so much there. I don't know if the prosecution can overcome that. There's still plenty of trial, of course. Maybe I can set that aside in this case with other evidence that they bring in, perhaps. But so far, I haven't seen it prove that Karen Reed even really drank all that much that night. In fact, it seems like all of the witnesses so far have testified that she didn't really drink all that much that night. She wasn't out of control. She didn't appear drunk. She even brought in the drink that she had from McCarthy's and continued drinking that first drink at the Waterfall Bar and Grill. So, and no one saw her get another drink after that. So far, the tally for me on number of drinks that she's had, according to the testimony, is 1. So I there's that. I don't think she was drunk at that point, according to what I've seen so far, the evidence that's come in front of the jury. And on the point of, did she hit him? I haven't seen really any evidence of that at all, other than that they left the bar together. That's all I know from the evidence. So we'll see.
Mr. Albert, did you speak with anybody at the break about your testimony?
Just my attorney.
May I approach?
Yes.
Take a look at this photograph, Mr. Albert. And if you could please tell me if you recognize what's depicted in that photograph.
Yes, it's the bulkhead stairway.
Is that the stairway that you earlier described for the jurors as servicing the basement going into the backyard?
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
I would have asked to have this marked as next in order.
Interesting. So we're going to get a photo of the...
Thank you.
May I?
Yes.
Move to publish, Your Honor?
Okay.
Do you see what's depicted on the television screen?
Yes,
Does that appear to be the same as what you're holding right there, that exhibit?
it does. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to direct your attention, if I could, to the lower left portion of this photograph. And right there. Do you see that? Tell what that is.
I can't.
Let me highlight it one more time, right there. Maybe it's easier if you look on your photograph.
Are you referring to the doorknob? Yeah, I got it here. Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, it's sort of hidden on that photograph, so I apologize. Is that the door that swings open or closed to close off the basement?
Yes.
Then if you open that door, it's in the open position now, correct?
Yes.
So the photographer is standing in the basement looking toward the doorway, correct?
Yes.
Then you climb 7 or 8 stairs,
Yes.
and that bulkhead door, which is where all the light is emanating, how does that open?
So the bulkhead door opens straight up.
Okay, at least in that photograph, it was hinged toward the house and it would open up like a, I don't know, like a sandwich or something.
It opens straight up to the bay windows that are in the kitchen.
Got it, okay. Okay, that's all I need for that photograph. Your Honor, I have a flash drive with a video on it. I'd ask that this be marked as next in order. Court's permission.
Assuming it's the same one, no objection.
It's the same one.
All right. We're going to fast
Albert,
forward
that
just a
video,
little bit.
I'll probably
Oops,
play
sorry.
Just a second at a video and then describe if you recognize what's in that video. I'll probably play maybe 5 or 10 seconds of it and then pause it. If that's okay.
Okay.
With permission?
Yes.
Pause. Do you recognize what's depicted in that video, at least up to that point?
No.
Does that look like your basement door, although the bulkhead doors have been replaced different?
The whole thing looks different to me.
Let's go ahead and play the video. Pause. Now do you recognize what's depicted in the video?
Yes.
What is that?
So that's was my backyard.
Okay. And what area is over to the left over here?
That's a gate
Okay. And what does that gate open up
to the front yard.
So the area that we're looking at right now, where the photographer is standing, is the backyard.
Yes.
Now, having seen that, notwithstanding the way that the bulkhead doors open, now do you recognize what was depicted at the beginning of the video, which was that staircase?
Yes. The downstairs door, the door itself, the wooden door itself also looks different.
Okay, so, but it is
But it is the stairway. Yes.
going into the basement?
Yes.
Or coming out of the basement?
Yes.
So in other words, another way to put that is that represented the ingress and egress through the bulkhead to the basement.
Yes.
Okay, let's go ahead and play this.
Do they take this video during the open house? That's what I want to know. Yeah, that does lead right to where he was found, it seems.
Did you recognize what was depicted in the video? Thank you. Thank you, Your Honor. Did you recognize what was depicted in the video as it continued to play?
Yes.
Describe that for the jurors, please.
It looked like the video was from walking from the backyard towards the front yard.
So the video started at the bulkhead door, turned toward the fence, went through the fence, and right up toward the flagpole, correct?
Yes.
Is that an accurate representation of the layout of the house when you lived there on January 29th, 2022?
Yes.
With the exception of the bulkhead door having been replaced and maybe the basement door.
Yes.
By the way, the 34 Fairview house had been in your family at that time in 2022 for 2 generations?
My parents built a house in the late 70s, 79 maybe.
So if your parents are 1 generation, you and your family are another generation, 2 generations.
Right.
Nearly, maybe actually a little more than 50 years, half a century.
That what? And what?
That it was the Albert home.
Yes.
The fact is, you listed that house for sale for the first time ever in November of 2022, correct?
That's the time we listed it. Yes.
Just months after John O'Keefe was found on your lawn.
Objection.
Sustain.
November 2022?
Mr. Albert, is that timing, according to you, a coincidence?
Is what?
Is that timing a coincidence?
Well, that's not the timing, actually. We contacted the realtor in 2021, finally listed it in 2022. So that would be pre-incident.
So the listing coming 9 months after John O'Keefe was found dead in your lawn, or dying in your lawn, that's just coincidence. You had this in place long before that.
Objection.
So I'll sustain the question. You can ask it differently.
Sure. All I'm asking is the timing, November of 2022, listing that house for sale for the first time in November, that in your mind is just a coincidence.
It's not a coincidence because we started trying to look into selling the house in 2021, which was the few months prior to the incident.
I thought it had been listed in April 2022, not November 2022. I mean, that's all like, because November 2022 listing it is almost a year after that whole incident happened. I don't know. I want to look back at Zillow just to make sure here, but I mean, I guess he probably has the records to impeach him if he tries to get squirrely on any of these dates anyway. Whatever.
On January 28th, 2022, you were still an active Boston police officer, correct?
Yes,
What was your job title in January 2022?
Sergeant Detective.
That means you not only respond to incidents, you actually conduct investigations as a detective, correct?
Yes, primarily fugitive investigations.
You have additional training in order to hold the title and hold a position as a detective. Is that right?
Yes,
Not just a regular patrol officer. You have to have special training to get to the rank of detective. Is that right?
yes,
As a sergeant detective, that's above a regular detective, indeed, because you're a supervising detective. Is that right?
yes,
You have experience and training in order to hold that position as a supervisor in the detective spot as well.
yes. The civil service tests for the rank, but yes,
And you've investigated crimes. I mean, I'm guessing just a ton of different types of crimes, including assaults, manslaughters, homicides, kidnappings, things of that nature.
no,
You've never investigated anything like that.
no.
So what's the parameters of your investigative skills as you held that title of sergeant detective?
So my parameters were investigating fugitive investigations. That was my,
Okay, yeah, Gina Ford, thank you for that detail. Okay, so it was sold in April. That's why I had April in my brain then. Listed in November, sold April 2023. Okay. All right, thank you.
specialty, I guess you could say.
So you've responded to, obviously, to countless incidents and scenes as both a patrol officer
Yes,
as well as a detective.
yes,
You've supervised the investigation of at least the fugitive type of crimes, correct?
yes,
Fugitives trying to thwart investigators to try to find them, right?
yes,
That's their whole, it's the cat and mouse thing, right?
right.
You being the cat, correct?
Sometimes,
Find the mouse.
yes,
You're also trained in techniques, obviously any detective would be trained in techniques that culprits might use or suspects might use to sort of cover up investigation. I'm sorry, to cover up crimes, to thwart investigations, correct?
Objection.
Do you have that training, sir?
no,
So you, in all of your training, 30 years as a Boston police officer, and as a sergeant detective, you don't have any training in what techniques criminals might use to try to cover up their conduct?
no. I've never gone to a training for criminals to cover up conduct. No.
Never been
Which there's a different, I mean, okay, maybe never been to like specific training for it. That's what he's saying. But is Alan Jackson about to clarify that he's not talking about specific training? He's talking about like, do you have like knowledge and experience and methods that you have learned to avoid in order to try to get these guys when they try to avoid you?
been trained in the fact that, I don't know, somebody might want to clean up blood at a scene.
No.
Objection.
The answer's to.
What about sanitizing a location?
Objection.
I'll allow it.
No.
What about getting rid of electronic data? You've got to have training in that.
No.
In other words, the fugitives that you chase down and try to find, you don't try to utilize electronic data to go after them?
Sometimes we do, but I don't have any training in it per se.
I mean, things like GPS data and phone calls, and text messages, communications, things of that nature, obviously.
Yes. Yes.
Clearly. These are all things that, at least those things, are things that if you didn't have formal training, you got on the job training and just have common sense about how to go after this type of evidence, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Sir, you had an iPhone with a number ending in 0888 back in January 2022, did you not?
Yes.
How many years did you have that iPhone as of January 28th, 2022?
Of several years, I'm not sure how many, but multiple years.
And Mr. Albert, you were notified by the Commonwealth that on September 23rd, 2022, in the fall of 2022, a judge specifically ordered that you were to preserve that phone.
Objection, Your Honor.
Data, correct?
I'll see counsel at sidebar.
This may be something that they've discussed that should not come in front of the jury. So let's see. We're gonna time travel for the answer. Is he gonna continue asking questions about this, or is he gonna move on?
Follow me.
All right. Now we're going to have perhaps some argument in front of the judge. Oh, we're going to have a spinning fan for a little bit. Well, but let's see if we hear anything before the fan spins. Okay.
All right, and I am going to see if his counsel here, he has a right to be present in the
Okay.
courtroom.
May I step up for a moment, Your Honor?
Sure.
Interesting. Yes, so folks have asked before if witnesses can have an attorney. And here's an example of one that definitely has one because he knows that he's under a microscope. There's this allegation potentially that maybe he's the whodunit, right? The defense has painted this definitely as a whodunit and saying it wasn't Karen, it was somebody else. And Brian is one of the defense's main suspects, it sounds like. So if they are going to have a question about some sort of testimony coming in on some potential shadiness, we definitely want Brian Albert's attorney to be able to be there in the courtroom for it. Okay, let's see. Is he going to walk in? He or she? Sorry, I'm not going to assume. He may have a female attorney.
All right.
All right, judge is stepping out. And we are going to fast forward through the spinny fan.
All right, so Mr. Jackson, you can have a voir dire.
Albert, you are currently represented by Mr. Henning,
Yes.
seated behind me. Gentleman in the,
Yes.
who's in the gray suit. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Without telling me anything you've ever communicated with him, when did you hire him as your lawyer?
I'm not exactly sure of the date.
Give me a time frame. Let's see if we can-
And by the way, yeah, this is not in front of the jury right now. The jury is not in the courtroom. This is a separate issue that they are going over here. So just so you guys know.
Write it down.
2022. I'm just not sure the exact date or even the month.
For the end of 2022?
I'm not sure. I believe prior to some of the other testimony that I gave. So prior to
April of 2022, at the state grand jury?
No, prior to the other testimony.
Okay, that was in June of 2023. That's my question. Did you hire Mr. Henning in 2023 in anticipation of giving testimony in June of 2023?
I'm not sure of the exact date. I believe it was maybe the end of 22. I'm not sure.
Or did you get a subpoena for the other hearing?
I did.
Okay. Did you hire Mr. Henning after you got that subpoena?
I can't say I believe so. Right around that time, yes.
Okay.
I'm just trying to remember the time and I can't remember it.
Okay. So you did not hire, well, Your Honor, I think that answers the question. You're not represented in 20.
I'm going to see at sidebar about the extent of the inquiry.
Interesting. I'm not quite clear on what exactly is going on with this, but obviously there's an issue related to whether or not he had an attorney at the time. It might be clarified when they come back from the sidebar. He might be asking some more questions now.
Yeah, Your Honor.
Yes.
Thank you. You had received I want to draw your attention to 2023 now. I'm sorry. Now I'm doing it. The fall of 2022, September of 2022.
Yes.
Did you receive a notice on Commonwealth letterhead indicating that you were not to destroy or in any way manipulate any data on your cell phone, destroy the phone itself, or to manipulate or destroy any data on that cell phone?
I do not remember getting that letter. No.
I'm going to read this for the record, Your Honor, if I may, with the court's permission.
Yes.
Did you receive a letter that said, in essence, not even in essence, it should be quoted as the following, quote, "You, Mr. Albert, are hereby notified that the defense in the case of Commonwealth versus Kieran Reed, Norfolk Superior Court, criminal case number 22-117, has filed a motion pursuant to Mass R. Crim P. 17 for the production of any cell phones that you used between January 28, 2022 and February 28, 2022, and or any data associated with those cell phones, period. The hearing on Ms. Reed's motion will be held on October 3, 2022 at 2 p.m. in courtroom 1 of the Norfolk Superior Court. You may be heard on the motion at that time. You are hereby placed on notice that these cell phones are the subject of pending litigation, and you must not alter, delete, destroy, or in any way manipulate any of these electronic data associated with the cell phones at issue. Period, end quote.
Oh, so that's why he was asking if he had an attorney, because if he had an attorney at the time and people knew that he had an attorney at the time, then that letter would have been sent to the attorney and not necessarily him. But if he was not represented at the time, he would have gotten that letter directly to him. And it may have been personally served. I'm not sure, but okay, there's a notice that he is not supposed to be manipulating his phone or removing any data or destroying it or doing anything to it. He's supposed to preserve it exactly as it is. No deleting photos, no deleting videos, no deleting text messages, no deleting any kind of search engine queries. And all of that seems to suggest to me that maybe that cell phone is not in the condition that it is supposed to be in after he received that notice. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. And yes, the Baz 80s, you did mention this before. Start talking about a phone, then the jury is sent out. The jury's got have that on their minds. No. And particularly the question of, did you preserve the evidence, or did you realize that you were supposed to be preserving evidence on that phone? Whew. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. What is going to be coming out now? Are we going to hear that there, in fact, is information that was revealed to have been deleted from that phone because there was a Cellbrite data collection from his phone that later happened? Oh boy, 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 boy. Oh my goodness. Oh my
Don't be
good.
suspicious. Don't be 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 suspicious.
John Ralphio?
Yeah, that's a, I think that's a moment to play it. Definitely a moment to play it. Also, Gooner1950, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Very, very happy to have you here. Thank you so much for supporting the channel. If you did not hear about it earlier, we have a members only live stream that we do on Fridays at 10 a.m. East Coast time. Because of the trial, we're doing it on Saturday at 10 a.m. East Coast time. So I hope you can join us for it. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. I have had this paused long enough. What is going to happen in this? What are we about to find out?
Did you receive a notice from the Commonwealth with that language?
I don't remember receiving that document, no.
Were you told
Oh, I don't remember receiving that document, but did you receive it? Because if you received it and you've conveniently forgotten that you received it, I mean, this is why these kinds of things oftentimes are personally served, because you've got another person that will certify, yep, I saw this person, I saw the face. They identified themselves as so-and-so, and this is who. I don't know if this was personally served or not. I don't know. Maybe it was sent in the mail or what have you, but he says he doesn't remember. Do you guys believe him? Yes or no?
told in any other capacity that you were not to get rid of or delete your cell phone? In other words, preserve your phone.
Subsequent to me upgrading my phone, I spoke with the DA's office. So after that, they told me via a phone call that that was the case.
So
Oh, and he's a sergeant detective and he should know better. That's, it's the same thing should be expected if an attorney was testifying, and they should have reason to know that their stuff, might come into question. And there's definitely a possibility that they could get grilled on something like that while testifying. Like he's been a police officer for 30 years. He is also a sergeant detective. He has probably dealt with examining digital forensics and trying to get digital forensics in order to investigate a particular case. Oh my goodness. This is not looking good for the prosecution. Sandy, thank you so much for the super chat. What, if any, Boston tea are we about to get? I think the tea is absolutely spilling all over the harbor right now. Yeah, his pants are all the way on fire, has one. I think so. Okay, let's continue on.
your testimony is you never received the notice that I just read, but you did talk to the DA and he told you to preserve, you were on notice that you were to preserve your phone.
After.
I know
Right,
you
well-
want to say that, Mr. Albert. My question is, did you have the conversation with Mr. Lowry?
Yes.
Okay. When was that conversation, sir?
So I don't have the exact date of the conversation. I'm not sure.
Who did you talk to on the phone exactly? Was Mr. Lowry alone or was it a conference call?
It was a conference call.
Who else was on that conference call?
I believe Steve Nelson, and other witnesses in the case were on the conference call.
Can you name those witnesses for us?
I believe it was Brian Higgins. I believe Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and maybe somebody else, but I can't recall.
Who initiated that conference call?
I believe it was somebody in the DA's office. So either Mr. Lally or Steve Nelson, somebody like that.
Did everybody just call into a central number, a conference line?
Yes.
And what exactly did Mr. Lally say to you during the course of that conversation about preserving your phone?
During the conversation, Mr. Lally said that the defense had filed a motion to ask for the phones to be preserved.
And anything else?
That's what I remember him saying.
Did you volunteer that, oh my goodness, I just upgraded my phone last week, convenient. I don't have that phone anymore.
No,
You didn't say that to Mr. Lally?
no,
You just took the information that he gave you and hung up the phone and what about your business?
yes,
Without notifying him that the very phone that he had just ordered you to preserve had just been destroyed days earlier.
no, the phone wasn't destroyed. I upgraded the phone.
The data was destroyed, sir. Correct?
I did not destroy any data on any phone.
Mr. Albert,
I upgraded my phone.
when you upgrade a phone, you know that the phone is set back to factory reset before your new phone is handed to you, correct? Happens every time.
I don't know that.
So if you have personal texts with your doctor, personal communications with Mr. Henning, your lawyer, you're just gonna hand that to a pimply faced kid at Best Buy and say, here's my phone? You know that data is destroyed when you upgrade your phone, right?
I think some things come over across contacts, things like that. So I don't know that for sure.
You can back up your data, sir, but the phone data is destroyed for all purposes. It's factory reset, correct?
I don't know that.
Who did you have a phone? That's an iPhone.
Years,
How many times have you upgraded your iPhone?
multiple times.
Every single time you upgrade it, you know that the phone prior, the data is destroyed on it, correct?
Yeah, it gets wiped.
Usually my contacts come over and my photos come over. So-
Sir, that's a backup.
No, I don't have. I'll
I can. Let him.
I don't think I have that on backup, but okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
Okay, so if he were not a sergeant detective, if he were a regular person, and especially considering his age, I'm not saying he's like super old or anything like that. So folks that are maybe his age, maybe older, I'm not making any statements about that. But if he were a lay person, I can imagine him being like, I don't know, But his background as a sergeant detective adds this extra layer of like, you should have known. And the reason why Alan Jackson is going through, or why the defense is going through this line of questioning right now, is because they want to be able to present this factoid, this little tidbit to the jury, because they're often, there is a presumption that if someone has been basically shown to have destroyed evidence, there's a presumption that the evidence that was destroyed is bad for that side. So it would be bad for the prosecution that he has destroyed evidence that is maybe would exonerate Karen Reed, or would show his own culpability, or would show the culpability of someone else that he is protecting. Whether that's him or someone else that has been perhaps implicated in this case. So, yeah, this looks bad. The question is, will the jury see it? The judge has to determine whether or not it does appear that he has knowingly destroyed evidence.
Irrespective, you didn't tell Mr. Lally that you had gotten rid of that phone.
I was not asked that, and I didn't tell him that.
I see. You felt like if you weren't asked that, you didn't need to volunteer it, even though the conference call was specifically about preserving your phone pursuant to a judge's order. Correct?
What was the question?
You didn't offer to Mr. Lally that you had gotten rid of the very phone that he was telling you had to be preserved due to a judge's order.
I did not.
And you didn't seek any advice from, I'm not asking you for the communications. You did not seek any advice from counsel at that time for those purposes.
I don't believe I did, no.
Yeah, I'm just talking.
Sure.
Oh boy. Woo boy.
At some point, you indicated, Mr. Albert, at another proceeding, under oath, in relation to a conversation that you had with Brian Higgins about your phone. Quote, I don't recall saying I was going to get rid of my personal phone to Brian Higgins. I may have said that, there's personal stuff on my phone. But I don't recall saying that to him, but I don't know. We had multiple conversations about things. You remember saying that under oath at another hearing?
Yes.
You literally admitted at that hearing there's personal private data on that phone. Hence, you got rid of it, right?
No.
You certainly wouldn't allow some kid at the AT&T store to have your personal private data. You're a cop.
No, I assume he doesn't have it
Why would you assume that?
because he took the phone and has it.
And what do you think happens to the data on the phone, sir? Let's just use common sense. What do you honestly think happens to the data on the phone when you turn it in and upgrade your phone?
I'm sure that the data is not there anymore. I'm sure.
It's destroyed, sir, correct?
I don't know that for a fact. I know that some things are transferred back to the new phone.
You just said, the data is not there.
Some data, I guess, isn't. Yes.
No, that's all I have.
All right, Mr. Lally, any questions?
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to take a short recess. I want to let this witness, if he chooses to have a few minutes.
Oliver Olson, thanks so much for the super chat. If the judge doesn't let this in, seems prejudicial. I can see a lot of people getting fired up if this does not get let in. We will see. All right, so we are going to zoom right through time travel mode, and we're back. But this is pretty freaking crazy.
All right, Mr. Jackson, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Albert, you were notified by the Commonwealth that on September 23rd, 2022, a judge specifically ordered you to preserve that phone and all its data, the phone ending in 0888. Is that right?
Yeah, at what time are you asking me that I was notified?
That day or the next?
On the 23rd?
On the 23rd or the 24th of September?
No.
Isn't it true that you were provided a letter by the Commonwealth that stated the following? Your Honor, if I may read this.
Yes, there's no objection.
Thank you. Quote, you are hereby notified that the defense in the case of Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, Norfolk Superior Court criminal case number 22-117 has filed a motion pursuant to Mass R Crim P 17 for the production of any cell phones that you used between January 28, 2022 and February 28, 2022, and or any data associated with those cell phones. The hearing on Ms. Reed's motion will be held on October 3rd, 2022 at 2 p.m. in courtroom 1 of the Norfolk Superior Court. You may be heard on the motion at that time. You are hereby placed on notice that these cell phones are the subject of pending litigation, and you must not alter, delete, destroy, or in any way manipulate any of the electronic data associated with the cell phone at issue. You received, end quote, you received that notice on either the 23rd or the 24th. Is that right?
I did not.
Your Honor, I would pose a stipulation. I spoke with counsel off the record, if I may.
You both have a stipulation that I haven't seen?
We just determined I'm happy to approach it.
Why don't we approach quickly?
Approach quickly. We're going to time travel.
May I, Your Honor? Yes. I would offer the following stipulation that on either September 23rd or September 24th, the Commonwealth sent a letter on Commonwealth letterhead to Mr. Albert's attention, stating exactly what was just read into the record pursuant to the court order dated September 23rd, 2022.
Okay.
So,
All right. Next question.
question real quick, Robinson, what is a stipulation? It's where the two attorneys on both sides agree to something. They can stipulate to a certain fact. They can stipulate, to like that they are going to agree to do certain things. Stipulation just basically means both sides are agreeing. They're not gonna quabble over something. They're not gonna quarrel over something. They're not gonna quibble, quabble, or they're not going to like continue to argue or fight. So they have, I believe, if I heard that correctly, they have stipulated that this letter was indeed sent to the witness. Oh boy.
Question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that you were in fact ordered to preserve your cell phone by the Commonwealth?
At some point, I was made aware of that, yes.
All right, let's just get to the brass tacks. Where's your phone?
My phone was upgraded and traded in for a new phone.
Your phone was upgraded and traded in for a new phone.
Yes.
Okay. Another way to say that is you traded your phone in and got rid of it, correct?
I traded my phone and upgraded it. Yes.
When did you get rid of your phone ending in 0888?
I upgraded my phone in September, third week of September, maybe around 22nd.
The 22nd of September.
I believe so. I can't be sure of the exact date.
So according to you, you got rid of the phone that was the subject of a court order preservation the day before it was ordered preserved.
Oh boy.
Rephrase the question, please?
This order was just stipulated. This order is dated September 23rd, 2022. It
Oh.
was just stipulated that on the 23rd or 24th, you were then sent a notice to preserve the phone. And your testimony is on the 22nd, the day before this all happened, you upgraded your phone and got rid of it in total, correct?
I upgraded my phone on and around the 22nd, yes.
And you knew
Oh my goodness. Oh. What are the chances of that? Gee, I wonder. That's just a little coinkydink in that right.
Don't be suspicious. 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 Don't be suspicious.
John Ralphio?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm sorry, but the day before the day before you were like you're ordered to, somebody tipped him off. I'm sorry. Like I don't know if she was framed. I don't know if John O'Keefe actually made his way into the house on 34 Fairview Road, but I think I am convinced by what is going on right here. I am pretty damn convinced that Brian Albert knew that he was about to be ordered to preserve his phone and was like, day before, what are you talking about? I wasn't ordered before this date. I'm gonna just clean this matter up over here. Brand new phone. I need a new phone. AT&T. All right, let's get it. I'm just, that timing is just way too on the nose. It's way too on the nose otherwise. Oh my God.
That all of the data on that phone would be factory reset and destroyed.
Objection.
Do you know that, sir?
I do not know that.
How many times have you upgraded your phone in your iPhone?
I'm not sure. 4 or 5 times, maybe.
You're aware that when you turn a phone in and you upgrade it, the phone that you turn in, that data is factory reset, meaning it's gone. It's destroyed off of that device, correct?
Well, I think some data transfers and some doesn't.
We're not talking about a backup. I'm talking about the physical phone. That physical phone becomes a brick when you turn it in, correct?
Correct that it becomes a brick? I don't know.
It becomes effectively a brick. There is no data left on the phone. I'm not talking about backup data onto a cloud. I'm talking about that phone.
So the old phone, yes.
Yeah, it's just everything on it's destroyed, correct?
Right, although some of the data transfers to your
Some
new
of the
phone.
data
You're aware that
transfers.
the very data.
See, this is where I would like to see Alan Jackson be like, okay, so you say some of the data transfers, so that indicates that you understand that not all of it transfers, correct? There is some information, therefore, that you understand that does not transfer over. I mean, maybe that's the one question too many, but I'm like, I want him to say it.
That you were ordered to preserve would have been destroyed, according to you, the day before. Correct?
Rephrase your question or ask me a question.
Are you claiming that you got rid of your phone on the 22nd?
I upgraded my phone around that. I'm not sure if that's the exact date, but yes.
So it could have been after the 22nd.
I don't think it was after the 22nd.
Could have been the 24th?
No,
Could have been the 25th?
no.
So you're absolutely sure that you could not have upgraded your phone and gotten rid of it anytime after the 23rd when this judge ordered that it be preserved?
No.
Because you know that if you got rid of that phone after you had been notified that you were ordered by a court to preserve it, you'd be committing a felony.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
So you now claim that you got rid of the phone on September 22nd, 2022. Hours before you were ordered to preserve it. That's your testimony, correct?
Yes.
Oh boy.
Is that just a coincidence?
Just a little quinkydink.
September 4th was my birthday. The phone was broken and failing. I had planned on getting a new phone, and that just happened to be the day that I got it.
Happy birthday. That's a coincidence.
Objection.
Sustained.
Yeah, that's argumentative as hell. He didn't care about, he was just being snide there. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir.
You were asked at another hearing in June of 2023? That exact question, correct? Whether it was a coincidence. You remember that?
I don't.
You recall being asked, quote, so it's just a coincidence that within minutes, hours, or days.
Objection, Your Honor.
Let's hear the question first.
Within minutes, hours, or days of you trading in your phone, that phone you had in January of 2022, that you were ordered to preserve it. Answer, yes. Question, that's a coincidence? Answer, yes.
Objection. Move to strike.
I'll let that stand.
That was your testimony, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that's what you're saying today to these jurors. Just
Yeah.
a coincidence.
Yes.
My goodness.
Did you and Brian Higgins agree with each other that you were both going to get rid of your phones?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
You testified at the other hearing in June of 2022, quote, I don't recall saying that I was going to get rid of my personal phone to Brian Higgins. I may have said that. You know, there's personal stuff on my personal phone. I don't recall saying that to him, but I don't know. We had multiple conversations about things, end quote. Remember testifying to that?
Yes.
So you're not ruling out the fact that you may have told Brian Higgins that you intended to get rid of your phone, correct?
No.
You're not ruling out the fact that Brian Higgins may have told you that he intended to get rid of his phone.
No, I don't remember him saying that to me.
Your testimony was, quote, I know there were conversations about the phones. I just can't say if he was going to get rid of his phone or not. You testified to that, didn't you?
Yeah, I have no idea what he was going to do.
I'm asking, are those your words? Did you testify to that under oath?
Yes, although I don't know the context of the time that they were asking that question.
June of 2020.
No, not the date of the hearing, but when they were asking if and when that conversation took place.
Does it really matter when it took place?
I think so, yes.
But you talked to Brian Higgins about getting rid of your phones. When do you think you had that conversation?
I don't think I talked to Brian Higgins about getting rid of my phones.
Well, you just said you can't rule out the fact that you had conversations with Brian Higgins about your phones and possibly getting rid of your phones. Right?
No, I don't think that's what I said.
You two discussed the fact that you both wanted to get rid of your phones.
I don't remember having that conversation with Brian Higgins at all.
Your testimony was, quote, I know there were conversations about the phones, sir. Correct?
Correct that that's what you read.
So if you're having conversations with Brian Higgins about the phones, what the heck were you talking about?
Oh my God.
I don't know the timing of when they asked when those conversations were.
Mr. Albert,
So
I'm leaving it open to you. I don't care when it was. I'm asking you, have you ever had a conversation with Brian Higgins about your phones, respectively?
we may have, I can't remember that conversation specifically.
Then why in June of 2023 did you testify, I know there were conversations about the phone
Ugh.
with Brian Higgins, end quote.
I'm not sure of the context of that.
So now you just can't remember.
No, I don't think I could remember during that testimony either. I think if you read the whole thing, I think I said, I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Your quote was, I know there were conversations about the phones. I just can't say if he said he was going to get rid of his phone or not, end
Right.
quote.
Right.
Does that help refresh your recollection?
Yes.
So now as you sit here and you answer my question, did you and Brian Higgins have a conversation about your phones?
I don't remember having that conversation with Brian Higgins.
Ah, Jesus. Again, the memory lapses. The memory lapses. Are they convenient or are they real? What do you think? This is nuts because he did previously testify. I mean, I really do think that Alan Jackson is doing a great job here of just really nailing into this and be like, look, you testified. I know we had conversations about the phones. What other kind of conversations were they going to have about their phones? What? Right? Like what other possibility is there? I'm always trying to look for like devil's advocate explanations for all of these things. I don't see it.
I invoke free husband super chat question.
Mr. Byte says he invokes free husband super chat question. Yes.
As an officer of the court working for the government, doesn't the officer have an obligation to protect the integrity of the court proceeding over the officers who may have committed a crime? So, like, he's objecting to that officer, to the defendant, or the lawyer.
Witness?
No, he's objecting to the lawyer asking questions
Yeah.
that may reveal something negative
Yeah.
about
Mhm.
that guy.
About the witness? Okay.
Yeah. Shouldn't he like allow for something bad to be revealed because he may be a dirty cop?
Well, it's so the obligation of the professional responsibility obligations of the prosecution of Adam Lally is not to the witness, it's to the state. So he, him, it still has a negative impact on the state's case.
But he may be protecting corruption within the state by not allowing potentially derogatory information to come out.
That's not the issue at hand, though. That's not what he's there to represent.
It just doesn't look good.
Yeah. And also, the chat says you have a very nice voice. All right, let's get more testimony here. And I've got some other questions. I see him in the chat.
Let's shift gears.
Sorry, I see him in the chat. We're gonna get to them. But yeah, he's absolutely right. It does not. None of this looks good. Also, I wish I had a clip uploaded here of from Parks and Rec also of Fred Armisen when he comes up as like one of the Venezuelan guys on like a trip up to the Parks and Rec gang. One of those just many clips of him saying right to jail. I totally would have wanted to use that here. Oliver Olson, also, thank you so much for the super chat. The reason I keep voting not guilty is not because Karen might not have done it, but the appropriate verdict is to render is not guilty based on conduct. If it's not proven, it's not guilty. Thank you so much for that. All right.
Shift gears. You're aware that Brian Higgins has also gotten rid of his phone, correct?
Ooh.
I am not aware of that until after the time you're talking about.
So without qualifying your answer my question. As you sit here, you're aware that Brian Higgins has also gotten rid of his phone.
I know at some point, Brian Higgins,
Yes or no, Mr. Albert?
did he?
Objection, Your Honor.
Can you answer that, yes or no, sir?
Yes.
Now I'd like to shift gears.
Right to jail.
Talking a little bit about Michael Proctor. Did Michael Proctor come into your home at 34 Fairview on January 29th?
Yes.
Michael Proctor? Let me rephrase the question. I want to make sure I'm not talking about Officer Lang, Officer Good.
Right.
Michael Proctor from the Massachusetts State Police. Did he come into your home on January 29th?
He conducted an interview with my wife, and I don't remember if it was the 29th or the 30th. That's what you're asking.
Wasn't that interview on February 3rd?
I feel like it was earlier than that, but it could have been February 3rd.
Okay. Presume for purposes of my question that it was February 3rd that Michael Proctor interviewed your wife. Then he would not have come into your home on the 29th, 30th, 31st, 1st, or the 2nd.
Right.
And you know from your training, obviously, as a first responder, the first 48 hours of an investigation are absolutely critical, correct?
Objection.
Do you know that, sir?
In that context, I don't.
Next question.
Okay, weird answer.
There's a TV show called First 48.
Objection, Your Honor.
Do you think
Did you just say you were on a TV show called First 48? That's pretty. That's pretty. I mean, come on. Okay, right, and thanks so much for the super chat. You need a new clip with internally screaming. I might also need that.
Think the first 48 hours of a criminal investigation are critical?
Objection.
You do know that the longer you wait to properly investigate anything, the
Leads
better
can
chance that
disappear.
evidence can be manipulated or destroyed, right? You would agree with that.
Yes.
Did an investigator or any forensics team ever come into your house, ever,
Nope.
to
that.
photograph your entire home?
No, I wish they had.
Did an investigator, yeah, me too.
Objection, Your Honor.
Now that's a snide bar if I ever heard of one. Mr. Jackson, we believe in side bars, not snide bars. But that one is kind of funny though. I mean, it's just funny because of the ridiculousness that is coming out right now. All the tea spilling all over the Boston Harbor. Just so much tea spillage. So much tea spillage here. Tony Khan, thank you so much for the super chat. A little behind, but whenever you trade in or upgrade your phone, the phone salesman tells you everything about the upgrade and asks what comes over. Yeah, usually that's part of the conversation too. I can still expect someone though who's like not tech savvy to still be kind of confused about the process. Like I can understand that, but someone who's got some specific training with trying to get digital forensic evidence and things like that, trying to use whatever is available to try to figure out who done it on different cases. Yeah, that's a bit of a different kind of situation here. Also, there were some questions from folks earlier. I'm sorry that I didn't answer them in the moment, but is this in front of the jury? I think everything after that second sort of mini recess is in front of the jury. I wasn't sure of it at first, but now he's gotten into sort of other questions as well. It's not specifically just about whether he knew about the phone issue and everything else. So good Lord. Oh my, Jesus.
Did an investigator or forensics team ever come into your house to search for physical evidence?
No.
Did an investigator or a forensics team ever come into your house to search for trace evidence?
No.
Did an investigator or forensics team ever come into your house to take carpet samples, flooring samples from the basement, for instance?
No.
And to this day, you're aware that that's never happened.
Yes.
Sir, you were in the Marines before you were a police officer, correct?
Yes.
You're a combat veteran?
Yes.
How long were you in the Marine Corps?
4 years.
During the course of your Marine and military training, did you have any training in hand-to-hand combat?
Objection.
Of course he did. Everyone does.
I'll allow it.
Yes.
In addition to your Marine training on the subject, did you also receive additional training from the police department through the academy or otherwise on basic hand-to-hand combat?
No.
So that's not part of the academy?
Not hand-to-hand combat. No.
Fighting
Right.
techniques, use of batons, things of that nature.
Defensive tactics.
Defensive tactics. Okay, that's fighting, right?
Well, it's not hand-to-hand combat. No.
Okay, fair enough. I may be using the wrong word. It's physical, it's training on how to either defend yourself or control another person physically.
Yes.
I mean, they're not going to send you out there on the streets completely ill-equipped. They need to know that you know how to defend yourself and how to put somebody in custody that doesn't want to be in custody, correct?
Yes.
And that might include fighting.
It could. Yes.
And beyond your Marine training and your police training, you're independently trained in techniques of fighting.
Have I boxed before? Yes.
Okay. And you've trained in boxing. It's not like you just walk up and smack a heavy bag, right?
You'd have to rephrase it.
You've trained. You're a trained boxer. You're a trained fighter.
What does that mean?
I've boxed in the past, and I've trained to box. Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I've hit a heavy bag,
Right.
but I'm not a trained fighter. You're a trained fighter.
All right, so there's an objection. You were standing, Mr. Lally.
Yes, sir.
Jurors, disregard that. Mr. Jackson, no comments, just questions, please.
Yes, Your Honor. In fact, your boxing skills were featured in a TV show that you were featured in as well, correct?
Objection.
I'll allow that.
No.
You were in fact, no?
That they were featured in a show? No.
You were never shown on TV in a ring sparring with somebody?
I may have been shown training, but I don't think I was having a boxing match. No.
Okay,
So he's quibbling over I wasn't featured doing it, and it was this and it was that in the little details. But yeah, okay. I mean, the point is you were shown on a national TV show and like presented as someone who boxes, someone who is trained in boxing and this big intimidating kind of figure kind of thing.
I wasn't suggesting that you were having like a paper. I was asking, is there a TV show that ever showed you in a ring boxing?
Well, that's not what you asked me, but if you're asking me that now, yes.
I'm asking you that now. I apologize. My questions are somewhat inartful.
Yes.
You understand the question now?
Yes.
And you have been shown, I use the word featured, you've been shown on television in a boxing ring,
Yes.
sparring.
I haven't seen the video in a while. I'm not sure if I was sparring.
Oh, come on.
We
You
can,
just said sparring.
Can we take a look at Exhibit 53?
Okay.
Is this a video of it? Of the TV show?
Starting at it's time of day 11:47 and 15 seconds to 11:48 and 35 seconds, maybe a minute and a half.
Okay, really quick. Stella by the Sea, thank you so much for the super chat. Reed is not guilty because there is a ton of reasonable doubt. The list of conspiracy to commit murder is long. I mean, and here's the thing: for the defense to win, they've got multiple routes to win here. One is just by showing that there is reasonable doubt as to the prosecution's case, and then there's also the issue of was she framed? Was there this conspiracy? In order to side with the defense, you don't have to go fully along with what the defense is arguing here. You can just say, hey, look, I think that the prosecution messed up. I think that the police messed up and they're investigating of this case. And therefore, like, how can you possibly convict her? Because there's just so much reasonable doubt in this case as to, how they ended up trying to prove her. The evidence just doesn't show it. Oh, it's not the TV show. This is video surveillance. Okay, this is going to be the quote unquote play fighting, I guess.
Pause. You see the two men in the foreground?
Yes.
Who are those two men?
Looks like myself and Brian Higgins.
Does it look like yourself and Brian Higgins, or is that yourself and Brian Higgins?
Yes, it is.
Okay. We can go ahead and play that. Sorry. I've got one more clip to play, but I have a couple of questions, Your Honor. Would you,
Let's take it down and you can put the other one up after the questions.
Did you see what was displayed on that video?
Yes.
Had you seen that before?
Part of it, yes.
Is that what you and Mr. Lally went over in your preparation for your testimony?
I don't think that we went over it, but he showed me a quick clip of it.
When you say he showed you a quick look, did he ask you questions about it?
I don't think so, no.
Did you give him any answers about it?
No,
Any explanations?
no, just,
He just showed you the clip and?
yeah, he just said, yeah, it looks like we were fooling around.
Okay, so you did make an explanation, given him
Yeah,
an explanation for it.
right. I said, I think we were just fooling around.
Okay, it's the same thing you told us this morning, right?
Right.
Just fooling around.
Yeah, just having fun with my friends and hanging out and fooling around.
That is consistent with what he said.
Describe what you're doing.
Having fun with my friends, hanging out, just being silly.
Okay.
He's gonna
Describe physically
pulling
what
teeth.
you were doing in the video.
I was playing around, sort of getting in a boxing stance.
Otherwise known as a fighting stance, correct?
Yeah, for a second, yes.
Okay. And what did Brian Higgins do when you got into a fighting stance?
It looked like he was kind of doing the same thing.
Got
We
into a
just,
fighting stance as well, correct?
yeah,
What were you two talking about? You can tell you talking.
yeah. I don't know what we were talking about. We were just being silly, fooling around, having fun.
Were you giving him advice on the proper way to get into a fighting stance or a boxing stance?
No,
You giving him some advice or some indicators about how to best position himself if someone is taking an aggressive stance against him?
no.
Is he telling you what he thought was a good technique for fighting or boxing?
I don't think it was that serious. We were just playing, fooling around.
But both of you were in fighting stances facing off against each other, correct?
Yeah, for a second or two.
And Mr. Higgins, you saw him bob his head and then start walking up toward you like a boxer might, correct?
Yeah, yes.
And then you got down, pulled the pant legs up, and you squatted down to indicate getting low, having low center of gravity, correct?
That would know that's indicating being silly. That
Okay. And
that's
then at
not.
some point, while you're being silly, you then faked a right punch toward him, correct?
I didn't notice that, but I'm not sure.
Can we take a look at the next part of this clip, which is at time of day 11:55 and 51 seconds. I'm sorry, 11:54 and 52 seconds. Pause it. And highlight it. Okay, there's several individuals crowded around a table. Can you describe where you are and where Mr. Higgins is?
Brian Higgins is the guy on the right with the hooded sweatshirt and the emblem on the back. I have a pointer. Do you want me to use it?
That'd be great. That'd be great.
So that's Brian Higgins, and that's me.
Okay, go ahead and play this. Pause. You see what you just did?
Yes.
What'd you do when you slapped his right arm?
What did I do?
What did you do? What are you doing?
It looks like I'm just being silly, fooling around.
Okay, I'm going to ask you for a little bit more physical description. What are you doing? Why are you grabbing him from behind?
I don't really know.
Is that a wrestling hold?
No,
Is
I
that
don't
a
think so.
control hold?
No, I don't think so.
Is that some sort of a control hold that you've used in the past?
Bear hugging somebody? No.
Okay,
That's just a silly fooling around with my buddy.
let's go ahead and play this.
Are you whispering sweet nothings into his ear?
You see what Mr. Higgins just did?
I did, yeah.
When you let him go, what did he do?
I don't know. He did some kind of, I don't know, he pretended to knee me or something.
Knee to the abdomen?
Yeah, I don't know if it made contact or not, but
Mr. Albert, I'm not suggesting by my questions that you two are actually in a fight.
right.
I'm asking what he's doing. Does it seem to
Yeah, I don't,
you that he's playing like or practicing like techniques in fighting?
I don't know what his intent was. It looks like he's just fooling around, just like I was.
But if a grown man walks up to you, grabs you from behind, and puts a knee up to your solar plexus, that's probably not the same as a high five, right?
What is your question?
In other words, it looks like he's practicing some sort of fighting technique.
Practicing? That's not how I see that.
How would you describe it?
I would just describe it as him fooling around. We're in the bar together. We're good friends. and we're just being silly and fooling. That's all.
There's a number of people in that bar. You would agree with that?
Yes.
You see anybody else in that video at any time getting physical with one another?
Objection.
How much of this video have you actually watched?
Not much.
Okay, then let me ask a different question. From your memory of that night, who are the only two people in the bar that seem to be getting physical with one another?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
Sure. The only person I remember being physical with was fooling around with Brian.
Okay. But just
And I will say on this line of questioning, I'm still not sure that this is going to become something that'll be very significant, but you know, maybe there's some other evidence, some other information that I don't yet know about that will make that a bit more concerning. But at this point, I'm like, yeah, they just look like they were like actually relatively lightly roughhousing, like that need to, like towards him, you know, putting, you know, when Brian Higgins kind of need him, but like in the direction of him, but not really. It seemed like a very weak attempt. Like if somebody was really trying to truly roughhouse, you know, I would see a bit more vigor in that kind of movement, I guess. Like to put it in a different kind of way, I guess. I don't know. I just it's a little bit of a limp noodle for me, in terms of like, is this really effective at this point? But hey, like I said, maybe something else will contextualize it and make it more concerning.
just a little bit longer. Almost finished.
And then they're hugging and that kind of thing. Like it looks like it's light, friendly kind of stuff. And also, Mr. W, thank you so much for becoming a YouTube member. Welcome to Bike Club. Very happy to have you here. Don't know if you heard about the members only live stream. I hope you can join us on Saturday, 10 a.m. East Coast time.
Did you see the rest of that video?
Yes.
No question that you two are being friendly with one another, correct?
Yes.
You would agree with that?
Yes.
But there's also no question that of all the people in that bar, the only two people that appear to be imitating fighting are you and Mr. Higgins, correct?
In that video, yes.
And is there another video?
Well, no, I just don't know what everybody else was doing in the bar.
Do you remember anybody else? You know, Julie Albert or
I don't remember.
Nicole getting into a scrap with someone?
No.
No, it's just you two, correct?
Yes.
Mr. Albert, this is minutes before everybody headed to your house at 34 Fairview, correct?
Yes.
Including John O'Keefe.
Yes.
Going back to
And Mr. W, thank you so much for a super chat. Very kind. And also, it looks like it's your first super chat on a live stream. Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm very honored. That is the type of stance they taught us in boxing when I was younger. Crouch low, protect your body with your elbows and your face with your hands. Yeah, I mean, it definitely seems like this is someone who knows a bit about, you know, fighting stances and things like that. But it's still, I still don't quite grasp the significance of it.
back to the morning of January 29th, everyone had left your location. This is after you had already arrived, had a couple of beers, people started leaving. Everybody was gone from your location at about 1:45 a.m., maybe a little thereafter.
That seems right.
Caitlin being the last person to leave.
I believe so, yes.
What did you do to get ready for bed, to settle in?
I went upstairs and just lied in bed. The TV was on. I was just kind of watching TV.
You have a nightstand?
I do.
Is it on your side of the bed or Nicole's, or you have one on each?
We may have had one on each in that house.
Put your phone on your nightstand?
No.
Where'd you put your phone?
The phone was in bed with me.
So your testimony is that you get in bed after being on a road trip all day long, then at restaurants, and at bars, then at a get-together at your house. And when you go to bed, you don't charge your phone?
No. I had the phone in the bed with me.
Why would you have the phone in bed?
We have 5 kids, and if somebody was trying to call or if I needed to reach them, it's just kind of a habit I do. I put my reading glasses and my phone in bed with me.
And you don't charge it.
Sometimes I charge it, but not as a routine, no.
So you're worried about having your kids out. They might need to get a hold of dad. So you make sure that your phone is nice and close, but it can just run out of batteries?
Well, if it's dying, then I'll put it in the charger. But if not, I just leave it on the bed.
Well, what about that night?
That night, the phone was on the bed.
How do you know?
Well, I remember the phone being on the bed.
You have a specific recollection from 2.5 years ago about the state of the battery charge on your phone such that you know that it was in your bed that night.
No, I just know as a routine, I keep my phone in the bed with me.
That's not what you just said. You just said it depends on whether or not the battery needs to be charged, it's whether or not you charge it.
My answer is that sometimes I, of course, charge my battery,
Of course you have.
but I sleep with the phone in my bed.
Every single night?
Yes, mostly every night.
I thought you just said 4 questions ago, it depends on whether or not the phone needs to be charged. Sometimes you keep it in bed, sometimes you put it on the charger.
If the phone needs to be charged, I charge it, but I sleep in bed with my phone.
Mr. Albert, did your phone need to be charged that night?
I don't remember if it did, but I slept in bed with the phone.
You've been on a road trip most of the day.
That's
Correct?
kind of weird because, like, I don't know if I mean, maybe he doesn't toss and turn. Maybe he's like super, like, straight in his sleep, But, like, what if you roll on top of it? Then there's like something hard under you, like that. If you have a nightstand, why not just always put it on the nightstand? That's just it's a weird. That's a weird thing to me. But hey, that's me and my tendencies. Other people might be entirely different. Maybe they sleep with their phone in their bed with them as opposed to on the nightstand. Whatever.
Correct?
Yes.
You've been out at bars that night, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Is that yes?
Yes.
You weren't charging your phone. We saw the video. You weren't charging your phone at the bar.
Right.
So when you got home, clearly put your phone on a charger, didn't you?
But
Oh, that also is a good question because after a long day of being all the way down in New York City and then driving back up and then being out and about.
did not.
So if your kids needed to get a hold of you, why would the phone being in your bed be any assistance to you instead of just on the charger at the nightstand?
That's just what I've always done. I just keep it in my bed. My wife does the same thing.
So now you've got 2 phones in the bed.
Yes.
Okay. And your glasses.
Yes.
Right between the 2 of you.
Yes.
Got it. Your phone have a ringer on it?
It does.
Ever thought about maybe turning the ringer on just in case the kids need to get a hold of you?
Sometimes it's on vibrate. Sometimes it's on ring. It depends.
Yeah. Depends on you. You just put it on ringer. Wouldn't that make more sense to go to bed, put it on ringer?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
All I can answer is that I sleep with my phone in my bed. That's just what I do.
And you know what I'm about to ask you, which is why you're saying you sleep with the phone in the bed, correct?
All
I
right,
s-
so that's sustained, that's stricken.
Yeah, that's he's totally arguing there.
What else is in the bed with you? Your keys, your wallet, any other pocket items?
No.
Just the phone and your glasses
Yes.
and Nicole's phone.
Do you also sleep with sharp knives and other uncomfortable objects?
Yes.
Right between the 2 of you.
Usually, yes.
What about that night?
Yes.
Sir, did you make any phone calls after you went to bed between the hours of 1:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m.?
Yes.
Who did you call?
I inadvertently called Brian Higgins.
What time?
I don't recall the exact time. After 2.
2:22 and 35 seconds. Does that sound familiar?
Yes.
Did you speak to Brian Higgins at any point between 1:45 a.m. 6:30 a.m. that night?
No.
You say you inadvertently called him at 2:22 in the morning.
Yes.
How did you inadvertently call him?
Well, I don't know because it was inadvertent.
What an answer. Just because, thank you so much for the super chat. What if he got a work call? Aren't police on call? That would probably be a work phone though, that he would get a work call from. Most likely. That's my default answer. I don't know if that's actually true. If anybody has more specific knowledge about, him being a sergeant detective for Boston PD, would he have a work phone plus a personal phone? I would think so. But still, I mean, it's a good question.
So I have to explain that.
Well, it's kind of like a butt dial.
Kind of like the butt dial. All right. How long have you used an iPhone?
A long time.
As a matter of fact, you've been asked this question before, haven't you?
Yes.
Hence my question. You knew what I was going to ask you.
Objection, Your Honor.
I'll withdraw it. You indicated previously at a different hearing in June of 2023 that you were, quote, hanging out with your wife and you must have butt dialed Mr. Higgins, correct?
Yes.
At 2:22 and 35 seconds on January 29th, 2022, correct?
Yes.
You were asked how that could have happened, much like I just asked how that could have happened, right?
Yes.
And in that hearing, you said, quote, I'm not totally sure. Similar to what you just said here.
Yes.
And here you added that it could have been a butt dial.
Yes.
You were then called back to that same hearing, but at a different date, an ongoing hearing, right?
Yes.
That was in July of 2023, correct?
Yes.
You then changed your testimony and said, and I don't mean to be indelicate, but your testimony was then that you were in an intimate situation, I'll put it that way, with Nicole at the time. And that's how you butt dialed Brian Higgins, correct?
I don't believe I said that's how I butt dialed Brian Higgins.
That's the time.
I think I said there was a time frame that was close.
Okay.
So I didn't say that, no.
All right. What you said was you were in an intimate situation with Nicole at the time that the butt dial occurred, correct?
I'm not sure if you have something you can read me or show me.
Is it your testimony? Let me just ask. Is it
Sure.
your testimony that you and your wife were in the middle of some sort of sexual or intimate situation, and that's what caused you to butt dial the phone at that time at 2:22 a.m.?
Objection.
Assisting.
I'd like to show you an exhibit briefly. Oh, sorry.
This is awkward.
May I just one moment?
Yes.
May I approach briefly?
Yes.
I'm not gonna mark this. Just see this. Sir, I just want to find out if this refreshes your recollection. Look at lines 11 through 13. And then let me know when you're prepared.
Yes.
May I approach?
Yes.
Does that refresh your recollection that you indicated at the other hearing that
Just the first part of that first. Does that refresh your recollection?
It does.
Okay, now you can.
Thank you, Your Honor. Isn't it true that at the other hearing, you indicated that at or around the 2:22 timeframe, you and your wife were in bed together in an intimate situation?
Yes, around that time, I think it reads.
Um, May I approach briefly, Your Honor?
Yes.
Well, with the court's permission, let me ask a couple of questions. Do you recall every call that you made between, say, 1:45 a.m. and the next couple of days? You remember every single one of those calls?
No.
Do you think it would refresh your recollection to look at a log of those calls during that time frame if we're going to discuss those?
Yes.
May I approach, Your Honor?
Yes.
All right. Fast forward a little bit.
That's 2 pages worth of documents. If it refreshes your recollection as we walk through this with the court's permission, let me know if you need to refer to that.
Right. I'm not going to be able to read it right now. I'll do it as you ask.
Correct, yeah. No, you don't need to read it right now. Just wanted to have it in front of you. By the way, you've seen these records before, correct? At the other hearing proceeding?
I've seen some records before, yes. I don't know if these exact records or not.
All right, and you've acknowledged that at least the first page, these are your phone records for the number ending 0888, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And these are call records from January 29th
Yes.
at 2:22 and 35 seconds in the morning, correct?
Yes.
Whose number ends in 5421?
According to this, it's Brian Higgins.
The call at 2:22 and 35 seconds appears to be 1 second in length. And that's from you to him, correct?
It says 1 second. I don't,
That would be the call, the initial call from you to him, the one that you claim is a butt dial. Is that right?
yes.
Did that call roll to voicemail? And then you immediately hung up?
No, I don't recall if it, I don't know.
So according to you, it was a butt dial that went to his phone that somehow lasted 1 second.
Right.
Okay. Then there's a second call. If you look at the second line down, there's a second call at 2:22 and 52 seconds, 17 seconds later, correct?
Yes.
That call is actually from Brian Higgins to you, isn't it?
Yes.
And that call doesn't last 1 second. That call lasts 22 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Obviously, you know how long 22 seconds is.
What's that?
You know how long 22 seconds lasts.
Yes.
So according to your phone record,
Really quick, David S., thank you so much for the super chat. Your phone would dial 911 before it would dial anyone else on the lock screen. Sold house for loss, rid of dog, remembers nothing but phone in bed. Yeah, there's some weirdness here. There is definitely some weirdness here.
records, you placed a call to him, and then 17 seconds later, he returned a call to you that lasted 22 seconds. Correct?
That's what the records reflect. Yes.
When you woke up in the morning, you obviously checked your phone. Did you not?
I don't know if I did.
Are you telling this jury that the call that came into your phone was a missed call, or did you answer it?
I did not answer it.
So it would have been a missed call.
I just know I didn't answer the call.
So it would have been a missed call.
Well, I don't
by
know.
definition.
I don't know that to be a fact. I just know
Wait.
I didn't answer the phone call. I missed the call. Yes.
That's what I mean.
Right.
You missed the call.
Right.
It did something on your phone and you just didn't answer it. What did you?
Right.
Okay. And again, you're using an iPhone.
Yes.
If you butt dialed Brian Higgins and he called you back and you didn't answer, you would have a very bright red missed call in your call log, correct?
Objection.
Do you know that?
I don't know that.
Have you ever missed a call on your iPhone before?
Yes.
And when you go to your call logs, it says missed call in red, correct? After your wife calls you, your kids call you.
I don't think I've ever noticed that it's in red. And so no, I don't know that to be true.
You're certainly alerted to the fact that it's a missed call, that you've missed a call, correct?
If I were to go back and look at my incoming calls, it would probably say missed call. Yes.
And of course, if we asked you to show us your phone, and show that that was a missed call, you couldn't do that because you've gotten rid of that phone, correct?
Objection.
Did you tell anyone?
I mean, I feel like that shouldn't have been sustained. It's a little argumentative, but he's made his point. I'm sure the jury heard it. They were probably like, yeah, that would be kind of helpful. I mean, unless the jury, I don't know, whatever. Maybe they're thinking differently than I am, but it would be helpful. I think, in my opinion.
Anyone in law enforcement that next day that oddly Brian Higgins was calling you at 2:22 a.m. and you missed a call?
No, I wasn't aware of that call.
If a call went to voicemail on your phone, you would get that voicemail, correct? You get notice of it.
And also, by the way, yeah, folks are saying the call log would be yes, the call log would be, but what Alan Jackson was referring to was the designation physically on his phone of like a missed call versus something that went to voicemail. Was it picked up? Like that would show up on the phone itself.
If I checked my voicemails and there was a voicemail, I would get it. Yes.
That's my question. Did you get a voicemail from Brian Higgins?
No.
Which means he didn't leave a voicemail.
Right.
Which would suggest that you answered the call, correct?
Objection.
Let's talk for a second about this butt dial.
Also, really quick here, I want to get this question because it's kind of timely relevant here. David asks, where is the jury sitting in respect to the witness? So the camera angle, it's like jury's like behind the camera essentially, or maybe just to the right of the camera or something like that. But it's basically that the camera is looking from the same direction as the jury. So the jury would be to his left.
You went to bed and you closed and your phone was you closed and locked your phone, correct?
Yes.
I don't want you to tell me what the passcode is, Mr. Albert. That's important. I want to make sure you understand. I'm not asking you to tell me what the passcode is, but at the time, was your passcode a 4-digit or 6-digit passcode?
4, I believe.
And that locks the phone when it's not in use, correct?
The phone will lock after it's not used for a while. I don't know the exact timing of it.
You're exactly right, Mr. Albert. I said it backward. The
Right.
phone automatically locks. You have to use the 4-digit passcode to unlock it, correct?
Well, no, I also have face recognition too, so it can open that way without any passcode.
We'll get to that in a second. The phone locks when it's not in use, correct?
Yes.
And then to make a call, once you open the phone, either through facial recognition or through the passcode, then you have to tap on the phone app in order to open up the phone app, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Once you open up that phone app, there are only 3 ways that you can initiate a phone call. Favorites, recents, and contacts, correct?
I don't know that.
Come on.
If you tap on a contact, that opens up the contact page or the contact app, right? You know that.
Yes.
It's where all your contacts are.
Yes.
They're alphabetized.
Yes.
You have to either scroll through or do a search and type in the name of the person you're looking for.
Right.
You didn't do that, did you?
No.
If you tap favorites, if you have favorites listed, there's a list of favorites. You have to scroll through and tap the one that you want to call, correct?
I think so. Yes. I'm not totally aware of that, but
And if you tap on recents, those are the recent calls that you've had, you've either received or made. And of course, you have to tap on the contact in the recents list that you want to call, right?
yes.
And then, of course, you would have to tap again to end whatever call you initiated, right?
Yes.
I mean, you don't just say goodbye. You got to say goodbye and hang up. You got to tap it to hang it up.
Right.
So would you agree, from a closed and locked phone, there is no physical mechanism by which a person can hit one button and make a phone call?
Objection.
Sustained.
Are you saying that from your closed and locked phone, you inadvertently tapped your phone one time and that initiated a butt dial to Brian Higgins?
Objection.
Is that what you're saying?
No, that's not what I'm saying.
Tell me what you're saying. How
I
did you butt dial Brian Higgins?
I don't know.
at 2:22 in the morning?
I don't know that the phone was locked I could have been looking through my phone. I butt dial people often and make inadvertent calls. I could have hit a last call from him by accident, thus calling his phone.
So you were actually awake and on your phone at the time.
I was awake and I could have been looking at my phone.
So Mr. Albert, how'd you miss the call 17 seconds later?
Well, my wife was in the room with me and we were hanging out and I never got the second call from him. So I'm not sure what time he called. I'm not sure what I was doing at that second, but I don't know.
But it didn't go to voicemail.
Well, I didn't get a voicemail from him. No.
So it didn't go to voicemail.
Well, I don't know that don't know that it didn't go to voicemail. I just know that I didn't receive a voicemail from him.
So if you, okay.
I mean, we're all guessing here, but I mean, he could have called voicemail.
We're not all guessing.
Well, you are, because you don't know if he left a voicemail or didn't, or at least got voicemail and then hung up the phone.
See, that's weird. That's weird because when there is a certain amount of time that's on a particular call, there's a reasonable question that can be asked of like, hey, was there a 22-second conversation? There's 22 seconds of something, right? So was that a conversation or was that a voicemail? Those are two very reasonable explanations for it. So where he is like, I didn't receive a voicemail. He's trying to quibble on, well, maybe he left a voicemail and my phone just never received it. That's weird. That's a weird explanation.
I think one of us is trying to guess.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained.
You know what? I want to see counsel sidebar for just a second, please.
Okay. Counsel at sidebar.
22 a.m.
Oh, sorry.
Are you now saying that your phone was open and unlocked at 2:22 a.m.?
I'm saying it could have been.
Are you saying that it was?
I don't know.
Mr. Albert, you were the only person that was there with your phone. Was the phone unlocked and did you make a call?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
Sure, I don't know.
And 17 seconds later, again, presuming you're the only person there with the phone, did you answer that call?
I did not.
You would agree that in order to answer a call, you can't just look at your phone to answer it. It has to be swiped physically, correct?
I think you can hit, I think it comes up green or red for the phone call, whether it's locked or not, and you can hit green.
Right, but you have to hit a button.
Yes,
Did you hit a button to answer a call
I
from
d-
Brian Higgins?
I don't.
I don't mean to talk over you. Please let me finish my question. Did you hit a button to answer a phone call from Brian Higgins at 2:22 and 52 seconds in the morning?
Not that I know of.
You do know that that phone will not answer on its own, correct?
Yes.
And simply touching your butt will not answer that phone. It has to be swiped.
No, I don't think it has to be swiped.
You'd agree that a 22-second call from Brian Higgins had to have been answered by you. Isn't that right?
Objection.
Do you agree with that?
No,
Did Nicole, who else was in the room?
just myself and my wife.
And Chloe.
Yes. But Chloe's not a human, so it was myself and my wife.
By process of elimination, Nicole didn't answer that call, did she?
No,
Chloe, the non-human, didn't answer that call, did she?
no.
So who had to have answered the call, sir?
Objection.
Can you answer that?
I don't remember answering that call. Could have hit the phone by accident, causing it to answer.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on from this, Mr. Jackson.
Your Honor, if I could have one or two more questions.
One more question.
Now your testimony is you could have answered the call, correct?
No, my testimony is that I don't know. You're asking me how it could have answered, and I'm trying to answer your question.
At a prior hearing in June of 2022, you were asked this exact question, and you answered, quote, yeah, it's only possible that it's me, end quote, correct?
I don't recall answering that way, but I'm not sure.
And you were also asked, after being confronted with these records, quote,
Objection.
I guess I could have talked to him, meaning Mr. Higgins, correct?
I'll
I don't-
allow this, and this is-
I don't recall saying that, no.
Let's move on.
He got it in though.
Did you have any conversation with Brian Higgins about a 2:22 a.m. phone call?
That next morning, while everything was going on, I mentioned to Brian that I may have butt dialed you last night. Sorry about that.
Did the two of you agree that you were going to both say those calls were butt dials in order to cover up those calls?
Objection.
You can answer that.
We did not say that.
But let's be clear, since then and now, you've gotten rid of your phone, correct?
I upgraded my phone, yes.
And since then and now, Brian Higgins has gotten rid of his phone. You're aware of that as well.
Yes.
By the way, you indicated that you were awakened in the morning by Jen McCabe about 6:30, correct?
Yes.
And when you woke up, you said you grabbed your phone to make a call. Is that right?
No.
Isn't it true that you grabbed your phone and made a call at 7:20 in the morning?
Yes. But that's not when I was awoken by my sister-in-law.
Sorry, that wasn't my question. After you're awake and you're up, you
Right.
started making calls.
Right.
My question is, what was the first call you made at 7:20?
Can I look at this?
If that refreshes your recollection with the court's permission.
Yes.
At 7:20, I called Brian Higgins.
Mr. Albert, you have 6 siblings and 5 kids, right?
Yes.
You have in-laws, cousins, huge family, correct?
Yes.
But on the morning you find out that John O'Keefe is laying dead or dying on your lawn, the first call you made at 7:20 was to Brian Higgins. Is that right?
Yes.
The same person you had a call with, or at least the logs indicate you had a call with at 2:22 in the morning, correct?
Yes.
During that 7:20 a.m. call, did you two discuss the 2:22 a.m. calls?
No.
Thought you just said that you told him, oh, I think I may have butt dialed.
Yeah, that was later in the morning when he came to the house.
Not on that 7:20 a.m. call.
No.
What did you talk about on that 7:20 a.m. call?
I informed him of what was going on at my house. We were out the night before, and I thought it was important for him to know what had happened.
Mr. Albert, I have a couple of more questions about the phones or the phone usage that morning and the day, throughout the day. You called Brian Higgins at 7:20 a.m. for 1 minute and 56 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Brian Higgins called you at 7:30 for 5 minutes and 47 seconds.
Yes.
You called Brian Higgins at 7:57 a.m. Spoke for 12 minutes and 33 seconds.
Yes.
You then called your brother, Kevin Albert, at 9:40 a.m. and spoke for 1 minute and 5 seconds.
Yes.
Chief Berkowitz called you at 9:50 a.m. and left a voicemail. Is that right?
He didn't leave me a voicemail, but I think he called me.
You called Chief Berkowitz back at 9:54, 4 minutes later, and spoke for 4 minutes and 40 seconds, right?
Yes.
You called Jim McCabe at 11:30 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
And Jim McCabe called you back at 12:20 p.m. You spoke for 7 minutes and 52 seconds.
Yes.
You called Kevin Albert again at 2:01 in the afternoon and spoke for 8 minutes.
Yes.
You called Kevin Albert at 6:45. I'm sorry. You called Brian Higgins at 3:24 p.m. and spoke for 6 minutes and 5 seconds. Is that right? And if it refreshes your recollection, there's a second page, second log. You'll turn your attention to the 3:24 p.m. time frame.
Trying to find it.
Take your time.
What time are you referring to?
3:24 p.m.
I see it. Yes.
And there's a second call. You call Brian Higgins at 6:12 p.m. and speak for 1 minute and 7 seconds, right?
Yes.
And then the third one on that page, you called Brian Higgins at 6:35 p.m. spoke for 10 minutes and 12 seconds, correct?
Yes.
Turning back to your call logs, you called Kevin Albert at 6:45 on the next, on that same day, spoke for about 16 minutes.
Yes.
Then on the next day, January 30th, you called Chief Berkowitz and spoke for 1:06.
Yes.
And the following day, you spoke with Jen McCabe, who called you at 8:04 p.m., correct?
Yes.
And finally, Chief Berkowitz called you at 1:48 p.m. on February 1st, right?
Yes.
3 days later, you spoke again to Brian Higgins at 8:48 a.m. Is that right?
Yes.
The subject of these calls, Mr. Albert, were all about the fact that John O'Keefe was found dying on your yard, on your lawn, on January 29th, 2022. Isn't that right?
I don't know the subject of all these calls. No.
You had to have been talking about that event.
Of course, it was a horrible situation that was going on. Everybody was distraught, and there were a lot of phone calls. This call log doesn't encompass all the phone calls.
No, it doesn't.
There are a lot of phone calls being made to a lot of people because of this horrible situation.
And the point is, Mr. Albert, those many calls that you've just described, especially as they pertain to Brian Higgins, Jim McCabe, Kenny Berkowitz, your brother Kevin Albert, were those many calls an effort to get stories straight at the time?
No, absolutely not.
Were those many calls an effort?
I'm going to interrupt you, Jared. We're going to send the jury out.
Oh,
Whereas actually, why don't we take the lunch? I'll see counsel at sidebar.
sidebar. Okay, while the jury goes out. Let's see if there's going to be anything. Oh, sorry, before they go to lunch.
She never asks me.
Wait, what was that?
She never asks me.
All right, so we'll have the lunch and recess then.
All rise. Let's
Oh.
You are muted.
Okay. So we've got the spinning fan. All right. So we were about 23 minutes behind. So that's going to be, that was a bit of an early lunch. So I'm going to assume that we'll be coming back at the same time as usual. So that'll be 2 p.m. East Coast time. So in just under an hour at this point. So I'll take that off the screen. Let's answer some questions here. We got a bunch that I need to go through here. Alrighty, folks. Baz 80s. Is it normal for witnesses that aren't being charged to have an attorney? It's fairly normal. Family man Donnie. So they put money into fixing the basement, raising the value, but then sell for less. It's just very suspicious. I mean, I'll tell you this, having grown up in a real estate household, my parents are realtors. I know of, people who, even when a market's really hot, sometimes people get, it's commonly referred to as the IKEA effect, where people overvalue the thing that they have and other people don't value it as much. And in a hot market, you can see that quite a bit, where people are really getting ahead of themselves as to how much their home should be valued, and that will include putting some work into it. And so they'll be like, okay, I mean, I absolutely should price this even higher now. So there is and I have seen Zillow estimates being, valued or valuing that property even higher than what they had listed it at. But Zillow estimates are notorious for being inaccurate. So I never trust a Zillow estimate for the price, for the actual price, actual value of any property, because that is ultimately going to be determined by the sale price of like the last transaction and an appraisal. So by somebody who's actually coming in and checking out all of the physical features of the property. So, I can still see, I totally understand. I totally get why people are not buying it on the 34 Fairview Road being sold and the timing and everything. I completely understand. That's perfectly reasonable. For me personally, all things considered, I think that there is a good, strong possibility that was okay. But, hey, that in combination with rehoming Chloe, changing his phone literally the day before he's going to be ordered to preserve his phone. It's a bit it's a bit wild. Also, Janet G, thank you so much for this. They have it listed as lunch return at 1:30 East Coast time. So let me just double check really quick here. 1:30. Oh, shoot. So that's like in like 20 minutes. Okay, let's get through these questions real quick because I've got to get up, stretch my feet, and have some food real quick. Suki London, could the feds ask the defense to ask certain questions? No, I don't think they would want to do that. And more than anything, there's probably going to be some information that would be shared. That's probably the extent of it. The Lucian, even if the notice went to the lawyer and not Brian, there is still a problem of potential evidence being destroyed / altered for this case. Can it still be brought in? Yeah, absolutely. Hang on one second. My earbuds have died on me. I've got to charge them as quickly as possible. Okay, so I mean, yeah, the issue of the cell phone evidence, I guess, has come in. Those questions were asked in front of the jury. Jury has heard it, and they will do with that information what they will do. Stephen Horton, could it get confusing with not saying the type of objection? The person asking questions can misunderstand what the objection is and stop a line of questioning when they don't need to. Absolutely, it's one of the issues with this whole rule. Janet G, what's up? Thank you. Janet G. So going through this without the jury, then they go through this again with the jury. His surprise or oh crap face won't be the same in front of the jury. Yeah, but it still looks pretty bad. But I mean, they still go through those questions. He gives his answers. It still looks bad. Ickis, I'd like to know what phone he had and what he upgraded to. If his old phone was still new, this would be even sillier. Was it a free upgrade, etc.? Yeah, I mean, how old was the phone? Supposedly he said that it was like broken, and that's why, that was one of the reasons why it was like broken, and it was also like his birthday earlier in the month, and so that's why he wanted to get a new one. Maybe, but yeah, that would be very interesting information to know as well. David S., how are the jurors viewing the witnesses, from the front, left, or right side? The left. They are viewing from his left side. John O'Rourke, question: did the jury come back in the room after the recess? They did. I think we had a few questions like that. Bora Bora, when did Higgins trade in his phone? Might it be on the 22nd as well? I don't know. We'll find out. I am very curious to hear that answer also. The hardcore casual question: if and when Karen is found not guilty, will the investigation continue to find out what really happened to John? That's up to the police. What do you think? Do you think they're going to continue to investigate? Maybe not. I don't know. FBI might continue. I don't know. Veronica B, can they ask for a motion to dismiss now? They would be able to ask procedurally for a mistrial if that were appropriate, but a motion to dismiss most likely is going to be at the end of the prosecution's case in chief. That's when it happens. Bora Bora, is he suggesting he could not answer a call from his kids if the phone is on a nightstand? Doesn't he have a way to charge the phone on his nightstand within reach? I would think so. I mean, that's what I typically do. Is it's on a nightstand, it's charged, and if I need to get a phone call, it's like right there within reach. That's for me, but that's me. Not everyone is me. David asks, where is the jury sitting in respect to the witness? Oh yeah, we got this one that was to his left, and let me see if I've got some questions here. Okay. Debbie Fizon Cook, question: does the defense have to prove the alternate theory of the crime or only introduce doubt in the prosecution's case? They do not have to prove anything. Introducing reasonable doubt is enough for an acquittal. It's just helpful if they do prove their theory as well, that because anytime the defense puts out a theory, in order for the jury to adopt it, they've got to be somewhat convinced of it at least. Lisa McFarland, does her side have anything but reasonable doubt? Well, they still have not yet. We're still in the prosecution's case in chief. The defense has not yet put on their case in chief. However, they have been doing some work throughout the prosecution's case in chief to put their theory forward. Whether or not people are convinced at this point, who have been watching the trial so far, that she in fact was framed, is up to interpretation. Reasonable minds can disagree, as our good friend Rick Hogue over at Hogue Law says. And but so far, reasonable doubt. I think that there is plenty of it. I don't know that I'm convinced beyond that, but like I said, other people might disagree. Baz 80s, if KR is found not guilty and they end up charging BA, hypothetically, could this testimony be used against him? Yeah, it could. Mew Mew. I have a real estate question. In Japan, the seller has to notify the buyer if there was suspicious death at the property. Is that the same in the US? I think that if there has been like a murder that has been proven convicted. Oh gosh, I looked this up. I even had this in my recap video. I don't think that in Massachusetts they have to disclose a death. There are some states that I believe that they do. That if there was a death in at the property, in the property, that might also have a difference if it was inside versus just outside, within a certain amount of time. So there are some states I believe that they do have to disclose that to a buyer. I don't think that Massachusetts requires that, but I do think that there is something for a murder conviction in the house. Mr. Brownstone, and so I apologize if I might be wrong on some of that as to Massachusetts. Folks in the chat or in comments are free to correct me on that. I'm not 100% confident. Mr. Brownstone, what does it look like when the defense, if they do, officially launches a third-party culprit, catch Jen McCabe or Brian Albert in a blatant lie, and then spring? So I think that what's going to happen is there will be some sort of a motion that will be argued, or maybe a sidebar or something like that, where the defense is going to request to the judge to be able to put that on. I'm not sure if well, I don't know. I guess it could happen at any point in the trial, because the judge said before trial began, she said that you cannot argue a theory of a third-party culprit until you have presented enough competent evidence for that to be put forward. So in other words, you can't just like throw around accusations out of nowhere. So yeah, that's what she said. So what does it look like? It would probably look like either a motion or a sidebar where they say, like, we really think that we've put enough out there to be able to argue this in front of the jury. So, yeah. Okay. I think that's all the questions that we've got. So this will, when I end the stream, I'm about to end the stream. This will redirect directly into the next stream, which is set to public already. So, and I'm going to put some social media posts out there, and it should be starting actually really, really soon. So I hope you guys have a chance to stretch your legs, hydrate, get some food. That's what I'm about to do. And otherwise, I will see you guys very, very soon.